Father, for your blessings, your hesed. Told Rabbah that you are through, Father, that you are wonderful, worthy to be praised, Yahuwah. Told Rabbah, Father. Told Rabbah, Father, for your Ahavah. Told Rabbah for your Shalom, Father, your Ahavah for the Mishpachah. Told Rabbah, Yahuwah, for everything that you do in us, through us, and for us, Father. Oh, for you are through, and your hesed olam, your mercy endure forever. Oh, Told Rabbah, Yahuwah, for you are wonderful, you are just, you are righteous. You are magnificent, you are powerful, you are perfect, you are Kodesh, 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 Bashem Yahusha. Told Rabbah Yahuwah for another prayer day, Father. Another time to get in these scriptures, Father. Another time, Father, to get in this word out on the Yahusha. Told Rabbah, Father, for the Shabbat, Father, for the day you set apart from the rest of the days of the Shavuot of the week. Told Rabbah, Father, for you have set apart the Shabbat. You have blessed us with your favor. You have guided our steps, Father. We want to say Baruch Atah Yahuwah. Baruch Atah Yahusha. Oh, for you are Thub and your Hesed Olam. Oh, you are amazing, Father. You are wonderful. You are just and Thub and righteous. You are strength, our salvation, our song, our king. You are everything, Father. Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. Oh, Father, for your loving kindness and tender mercies. Toda Rabbah, for your right rulers, Father. For your Hesed Olam, Father. For your mercy endure forever. For you are our everything. You are our foundation, our rock. You are our foundation and strength. You are Melech Kabod, Melech HaOlam, Toda Rabbah. Oh, how amazing you are, how wonderful are your ways, how great is the sum of your ways. Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. You so through to us, Father. You show us so many things, Father. You bless us with great favor from on high, from the Shamayim. You bless us with favor. You baruch us, Father, with wisdom and chakma and banah. Toda Rabbah, Father, for the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding of you that you bless us with, Father, through the Prep Day podcast, through the Midrash, through the Melakim, your sons, your leaders, Father, through your heads, through your Roshim, Father, through the Mushalim, oh Father, Toda Rabbah Yahuwah, for the Yahusha, for the hidden manna from the Shamayim, Toda Rabbah Yahuwah, oh Most High, oh Yahusha. Oh, I pray that you be in the midst of this discussion, Father, that you be in the midst of this word, Father, that it be your words in our mind out on the Yahusha. Speak through my mouth, see with my eyes, move with my body, Ab Yahusha, that it be your words in our mind, Father. Let these words drop down like rain on fertile ground, Father, that it may bring forth fruit and fruit in abundance, Father. Oh, that we be a fruitful bro, that we be like a fruitful tree out on the Yahusha. Oh, Father, Baruch your people, Baruch your children out on the, Baruch your sons, Baruch your daughters, Father. Oh, Yahuwah, Toda Rabbah, Father, that you, oh, Yahusha. Oh, that you Baruch us to be a kingdom of Melakim and Kohen, a kingdom of kings and priests. Oh, Toda Rabbah Yahuwah, that you bless us to be, oh, Father, oh, Yahuwah. Oh, known above all the other people groups on the Yeretz, Father, Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. Oh, for we are your set apart ones. We are your Kodesh ones. Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. Oh, Father, for the richness of the inheritance of the Kodeshim. Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. Oh, Father, for we love your holy name. Praise your Kodesh name. Toda Rabbah for your Barakot, your Ahavah. Toda Rabbah for the Mishpachah Yahuwah. Oh, Yahuwah. How excellent is your name and how wonderful are your ways, Father. How excellent is your name across the Eretz, Father. Toda Rabbah Yahuwah. For you bless us with great favor from on high. You blanket us with your loving kindness. You cover us with your tender mercies. You baruch us with your right rulings, Yahuwah. Total Rabbah, Father. Oh, you're so wonderful, Father. Oh, you are through and your Hesed Olam. Oh, Father, we pray in the name of Yahushua Mashiach that you baruch this prayer day podcast, that you baruch this word, that you baruch this message, Father, that you baruch every comment, Father, that everything that you want to come out, that it may come out, Father, that everything that you want to be stated, that it may be stated, Father. Oh, hear the prayers of your people, hear the cries of your children, Father. Oh, Total Rabbah for redemption and salvation, Total Rabbah, Father, for everlasting life, Father. Total Rabbah for the kingdom is at hand. Total Rabbah, Father, for the nation, Father, for the kingdom of the Shamayim is at hand. Total Rabbah, Yahuwah. Oh, Father, so you are so wonderful and through. You're so righteous and oh, you're so just and magnificent. You're so powerful and perfect. Total Rabbah, Yahuwah. Total Rabbah, Yahusha. Total Rabbah, Yahuwah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Total Rabbah, Yahusha. May it be so and may it be established. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
MATITYAHU, Emunah, Shalom, Shalom. Bakir Yakum Yamin Yah, Bakir Ezra Yuri Yahu, Hudim. Bakir Sargon Manu, Bakir Ezra Hadassah, Hudim. Bethsaida Yahu, Shalom, Shalom. Ima Ora Yahu, Hudim. Shamar and Shakar, Shamar and Shakar, Shalom Barakot, y'all. Shalom Barakot. Let's see, who else do I see? What it's gonna be? I think that's image 2391. I know who you are. I'm trying to, but you don't got your name up there. Who that is, Bakir Sargon? Image 2391. What's her name again from Augusta?
I'm trying to see a picture. It's too small.
Man, that's a Cody from Augusta, man. I'm gonna get your name. It's at the tip of my tongue. Esma Korgo, Shalom, Shalom to you. Ivan Yahakanan Little, Shalom Barakot. Ari Moshe Yisrael, Shalom, Shalom. Naam Maria, Shalom and blessings. Shimshon and Holder, Shalom Barakot. Ima Yashayahu, Hudim. Yirmiyahu, Shamayahu, Shalom, Shalom. Cody Selah, Shalom Barakot. Oh, Toda, Kun Rakam Yahu, that's it. Yeah, Kun Rakam Yahu. Shalom, blessings through the Sion. All praise to the Most High. Yes, sir. So we're going to get it in, y'all. We're finna get in His word. Praise Yahushua. Man, told out to Yahushua. Man, shalom, shalom, what's going on? Hoping all is through on that YouTube. Y'all, the Prep Day Podcast. This your Agmushal Asaf Yahoo. We got Bakir Sargon Manu on as well. Bakir Sargon Manu on here as well.
Oh man, I was jamming to the music. Man, listen here, man. I got lost in the music and the beat. That mug is just so fire. Shalom, Vehudim, Abu Shah, Mabu Salah, Shalom Alaikum, Yahoo. Man, I'm excited about this one. I'm ready for this prep day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's go and get a Hudim. I want to give a Olam Hudim, La Yahuwah, Ula Yahusha HaMashiach. I want to give an I am Mispar Hudim, La Melech Musha, Ula Melech Yahusha. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, La Malka Kayil, Ula Malka Yada. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, La Rosh Aluf Yithro, Ula Rosh Ha'atz Yeshayahu. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, La Hagabira Malaka Deborah, Ula Gabira Ot, Ula Alufim. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, Ula Chagma Ot. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, La Shalit, U Shalita. I want to give a Kafel Hudim, La Mushalim, Ula Mushala Ot. I want to give a special Kafel Hudim to my Isha, Mushala Ahmed Yahu. Told out to Yahuwah and Yahusha for her. I want to give a Hudim to the Sarar Ubikir Yamin, to the Sarar Ubikir Sarganim, to the Sarar Ubikir Ezerot. I want to give a Hudim to the Sarar Ubikir Yakum Yamin. I want to give Hudim to the Hadarim, the Hadarot. Hudim, the Alufim, the Bakir Aluf, and to the Bakir Alufim and the Imayo in the west. And I want to give a Shalom Aleichem to all the Mishpachah, Ba'it Yahu. I want to give a Shalom Aleichem, Lakol HaMishpachah. All praise to the Most High. Rylan, what's going on? Rylan, I'm going to be checking your notes.
About in that thing. Hallelujah.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. But what we're going to do, we're going to go through these scriptures. We're going to continue in this Prep Day Podcast. We've been going through some different things before. We've been going through the book of MATITYAHU, which has been we've been going through dream interpretations. Just talking through just different concepts surrounding dreams and dream interpretation. We are switching it up. So we're going through the Brit Hadashah, which means the New Testament or, renewed covenant to be more, more precise, more technical. But it's the Brit Hadashah. We're going to be rolling through that. So, y'all, let's go and get it in. In order to get better, we got to get it together. So let's go and get it together and get out these notes, these journals, and we'll go from there. But, y'all know how it is in this walk. Sometimes because you went through the Brit Hadashah all throughout your church days, because that's, most churches, that's what they focus on. Pastor will read, from the Gospels or, they love Paul. They'll go to the, letters of Paul, and you're not going to see a whole lot of studying in the prophets or Vayikra, Leviticus and stuff like that, And so coming to the truth, and there'll be a lot of focus and honing in on the stuff we didn't really get growing up in the church, and that'll be like the Torah and Tanakh. Man, I didn't know this was in the book of Devarim or Deuteronomy. The church, most churches, they're not really just diving into the book of Deuteronomy. You know what I'm saying? But they'll be all up in the Gospels, and they'll say, "See, thus he said, thus he declared the food clean." They'll be honing in on it, but nevertheless, so sometimes the Brit Hadashah, when you get into this truth, it can get neglected. Not saying that, we don't believe it or don't move in it, nothing like that, but sometimes, it don't be the focus in the studies as much as it probably should. Because, the Brit Hadashah gives us the records, eyewitness records of Yahushua HaMashiach, right. At least when he came on the Eretz. But we got to understand, though, before we get into this, that this the Gospels or the Besarim is not the first time Yahushua HaMashiach came and walked on the Eretz. Okay?
Facts.
The Besarim or the Gospels, oh man, Rylan done jumped off. The Gospels is not the first time Yahushua HaMashiach came to the earth realm. It's just not. Malek Yahusha talks about this, that Yahushua HaMashiach has been coming to the earth realm all throughout history. He's visited people all throughout history. This was not the first time. There's this concept of sons of light. I don't even know if I should go that deep right now, but I'll just say this real quick. There's this concept of the sons of light and how the sons of light come into the Eretz at different times throughout history. Yahusha, in a sense, is he's the head of that. He's the one who started that. He's the one. He is that. And the rest of the sons of light are like his body. You know what I'm saying? That's why the rest of the sons of light basically are similar to him, like in his image. They're his body, and so they come in and out of the Eretz in different times throughout history as well. You know, hopefully that wasn't too much to just throw out, just to pour out right here in the beginning, but
you're gonna see it. You're gonna see it laid out.
Yeah, because this is what we're reading about in the Besarim. We got to understand this is just one of the times when one of the many times that Yahusha had came into the earth realm, entered into history. This was a very significant time. I think that's why this was recorded so thoroughly, because this was his time that he came for, you know, to really it was a very big purpose that's leading to the redemption of the nation, of the whole kingdom, and things like that. That's why I think one of the reasons why this is such a big, a lot of records on this. You have several Besarim eyewitnesses and things like that. But it's interesting that Yahusha, he didn't write a book himself. He didn't write a book himself. Y'all notice that? Y'all know how you got the book of Yeshayahu, you got the book of Yirmiyahu, you got the book of, you know, Ezekiel, you know, Yekeskel. It ain't really a book of Yahusha. I mean, they got the book of Yahusha, like the book of Joshua, but I mean, as far as Yahushua HaMashiach, you know, we don't really have that. You had a Besarim where you had these eyewitness records where they're recording and bringing out some of the eyewitness records of when he was on the arrest during this time. Why did he not write a book in the scriptures? This is why I submit. Because he did write the scriptures. The volume of the book is about him.
It's about him.
It was his people who wrote. The prophets are the sons of light. That's his body. So in a sense, he did write the scriptures. In a sense. Because it was written by his body. That's the people who wrote the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
It was inspired by the Ruach HaKodesh. So he's above that. That's why there's not a specific, you know, book that he wrote specifically, you know, this book written by Yahushua HaMashiach. He is the book. He's the Torah made flesh. The people who wrote it are part of his body. They're the sons of light who are after his order, are part of his body. I think that's a better way to explain it. So he's above that. Like nobody's gonna ask why didn't Yahuwah write a specific book in the scriptures? Why is there not a, you know, I don't know, a book of Yahuwah, Alua?
Mhm.
Because he did write it through his people, the whole scriptures. So those are just some concepts to kind of think through, to kind of just to kind of meditate on. Um, but in this Prep Day podcast, we would love to hear anything y'all have as well. Y'all can put it on. Y'all can if y'all have anything, put in the comments. Raise your hand. You can speak on whatever you might have. If you're on the Zoom, it's all through.
Yeah, something you said was super important because
I got
what
you.
we're going to see as we're going through the book of Matthew is we're going to understand it through a different lens. So when you talk about, so usually in the church, mhm. Yeah. So normally when we let's see, can y'all hear me all right? Let me see. It might be an echo. Let me see. How I sound on YouTube, Zoom. God. So now, what I was saying is, I remember coming into the church and the very first book that they start you with is Romans. You get to the book of Romans, and then you're like, man, I read through Romans what I need now. So you want to start in Matthew because, the God of the Old Testament ain't the same God as the New Testament. Because in the Old Testament, he was angry, but in the New Testament, he just smiles. You know what I'm saying? Paraphrase. So what you said was how we've been going through the Torah portion. We're familiar with the Old Testament, basically is what they call it, the Old Testament. Little echo. Okay, we should be. Think we got it fixed now. Better. Praise you. Who should told you now. So now when we read through Matthew, Matthew's an interesting book because when you look at the Besoras, right? You got your Matthew, your Mark, your Luke, and then you got John, the book of John. They're kind of written to different people groups. So Matthew is written to the Yahudim. So as we're reading this, we have the opportunity to look through new eyes. And you're going to see things, especially as we've been walking through the Torah, you're going to be like, oh, snap, now I see why he said that. Oh, snap, that's why he said the law has not been abolished. So Matthew, he does not, when he writing y'all, he is writing to the Yahudim. He writing to us. That's important to know. He's writing to the southern kingdom of Yehuda, right? That's why you're going to see certain interactions with Samaria. He's writing to a group of people who would have known the history. When you look at it, graphically, when I say graphically, what I mean is when you look at it by location, like where they would have been in that day, it would have been towards this group of Yahudim people. When he expects when they read this, they know what it means. Like for example, Matthew, you're going to see, like once we get to Matthew 5, you'll see stuff like, "For you have heard that it is written."
Con.
In Luke and in Mark, they're going to explain a lot more because Luke and Mark is more so written to like maybe the Northern Kingdom. It's debatable, but maybe the Northern Kingdom or people who wouldn't have been as familiar in that day with the scriptures. But us as Yahudim, when we read Matthew, especially having the background of the Torah with us now, we're gonna think, okay, it is written. We're gonna know what he's talking about like that. Or when he says, think not that I came to abolish, but to fulfill. That's gonna ring different for us. Or behold, here comes the Lamb of Elua who takes away the sins. When we read the Lamb of Elua, we're gonna be like, oh snap, that's sacrificial language. So it's gonna be interesting, especially as we get through some of these Torahs. We went through Mishlei when we get to not these tours, when we get to some of the parables, like the parable of the farmer, the parable of the sower, it's just going to make a lot more sense to us. So I'm excited to get through the book of Matthew. I mean, I've been wanting to really look at this for quite some time, and now we get to go in debt.
Yes, sir.
And we got sound like I said debt, like DEBT, like not debt. We ain't in debt, praise you, we getting out of that. But we get to go in depth, DEPTA. we get to go in depth with y'all, and that's why I really hope that y'all are chiming in, because it's going to be like a cleansing and a washing of the things that we've heard before. So I'm excited. I can't wait to study this with y'all.
Man, for real. So, without further ado, let's go to MATITYAHU. Without further ado, let's go to the book of MATITYAHU. So, we'll just start with chapter 1. Let's see. Oh, like Bakira Lufa on there, so we'll just roll with it right now. Let me share the screen. All right.
I mention one more
Yep.
quick thing.
Yep.
So right before we jump into that, I think one thing we had the chance to do is, everybody doesn't know the book of Matthew was written primarily in Greek, whereas when we're be written in Hebrew, and then you have some Arabic and stuff like that. But to take a look at how to go back and forth between the two at some point. So just get to read this.
No, I'm glad you said that. I'm gonna go ahead and just speak on that a little bit as well. It's a very important thing. What Bakir Sargon just said. When you're reading the Brit Hadashah is the manuscripts that the English is translated from is from Greek manuscripts. Are there Hebrew manuscripts? There is, there's one that we know of the book of MATITYAHU. I think they call it the Shem Tov Gospels or something. But it's a relatively recent manuscript compared to the Greek that we have. Keyword that we have that we know of. Now, originally, there are books. Originally, there are books in the Besarim that originally were in Hebrew. Many believe, especially MATITYAHU, was probably originally in Hebrew. But we do got to remember that Greek was the lingua franca of that region during that time. So, because you got a lot of people they'll argue that that all the Brit Hadashah was originally in Hebrew.
Yeah, that's a great
I
point.
wouldn't make that argument, and this is why our ancestors were in captivity during this time, Mr. Parker. And one of the reasons, and you'll see when you read the Brit Hadashah, a lot of these letters in the Brit Hadashah, I don't know about the Besarim. The Besarim were a lot more Hebrew centric, but when you get into like Paul and some of these other letters, man, they was written to the scattered. That was the target audience. So if you grew up like, I don't know, Paul in Tarsus or somewhere else, you know what I'm saying? Or if you wanted to scatter, you might not never known the Hebrew. Your first language is where you grew up at. You might be a Greek speaking Hebrew. How you gonna be able to read a Hebrew manuscript?
Mhm.
But Greek was the lingua franca at that time. So most people knew how to speak Greek, even if they spoke Hebrew too. Even in Israel, a lot of the people at the ancient Israel, a lot of the people at that time, they still knew they had to know how to speak Greek too, because they was in captivity under the Greeks and the Romans. They was in Roman captivity during this time. But when you start getting into that stuff, the Romans were just basically an extension of the Greco-Roman. That's why they called it the Greco-Roman Empire, because when the Romans came and they took over, they basically was an extension of Greece. And so everybody knew Greek, generally speaking. That was the lingua franca, meaning that was the general language of trade and just the general language that most people knew they had to learn, they had to speak during that time. So it makes sense for even many of the original Brit Hadashah letters to be written in Greek. It makes sense. I'm gonna give you an example. If I want to write, me, Asaph Yahoo, if I want to write some records, some letters to send to the scattered in this American captivity. I'm a Hebrew. I'm an Israelite. You know, tribe of Yehuda, right? Would it make sense for me to write that record in Hebrew? I know a little bit of Hebrew. I could probably figure it out if I take my time, you know, use some of the resources. I'm gonna have to use some resources, but you know, I could do a little bit on the Hebrew. But would that make sense? Who gonna be able to read it in this captivity? Nobody. But what if I went on and wrote it in English? Everybody in this captivity will be able to read that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be able to reach millions and millions in this captivity, even if we go down to places that aren't English speaking for their first language. Like even when you go down to, for example, let's say the scattered that are in South America, a lot of them know English because English is the lingua franca of this area. Because America has the dominion. That's the language of trade in this continent is English. So even when I went to travel. I went to go to Mexico one time, you know, cruise a long time ago. Went to different places. A lot of those people, they still know some English too. They learn English growing up, even though that's not their first language. Because they're taught that they need to know the English just to be able to, you know, get a through job, to be able to, you know, that's the language of trade
Major
for
point.
for this region. So I just say that to say it's important to know that the manuscripts we're reading from are not, or that the English is translated from are not Greek. I mean, are not Hebrew manuscripts. They're Greek. So with that being said, there are some things you got to do if you want to try to get to the root of it, to the Hebrew. And so it's not hard, but we talked about it before, but just wanted to throw that out there. Since Bakir Sargon did that made sense, and that was a through point. But without further ado, did you have anything else? All right. All right, that's right, Ima Yasha. Just like most everyone now knows English. That's you right on it. Eckhart. All right, so all right, chapter 1. The book of the genealogy of Yahushua Mashiach, the son of Dawid, the son of Abraham. So that's important. You see, MATITYAHU, he's establishing the bloodline of Yahushua Mashiach, that he's a direct descendant of Dawid. Now, to a Hebrew, that would be very important. That's probably why MATITYAHU is the book that's known to be originally written in Hebrew. MATITYAHU. He establishes Yahushua to being a direct descendant of David, so that automatically to a Hebrew lets him know, oh snap, he's of the lineage of the kings, the Melachim. He's of the lineage of nobility. Oh man, okay, he's the one who sits on the throne of David that was prophesied all throughout the scriptures. So then the genealogy starts off with Abraham. So most of y'all, many of y'all, especially those in Austin, you know, and other places, y'all been reading, you know, Torah portions, reading the Torah. And, you know, right now, you know, at least the Torah portions right now, if y'all look at y'all calendar, so those who got a rebirth calendar, you know, we're kind of around the area of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. We're kind of in those Torah portions going into those scriptures. You notice that it starts off with Abraham. In the genealogy of Yahushua Mashiach, in the book of Matthew, it starts off with Abraham. Very interesting. Establishing that he's a descendant of Abraham as well. So Abraham begot Yitzhak. Yitzhak begot Yaakov. Yaakov begot Yehuda and his brothers. That's interesting that it goes to Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, and then it goes to Yehuda, the son of Yaakov, and his brothers. Yehuda begot Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram. Ram begot Aminadab. Aminadab begot Nashon. And now that was a big one, big revelation for me back in the day because of Nashon being, he was the leader of the tribe of Judah in the wilderness. Y'all read about it in the book of Numbers. In the beginning chapters of the book of Numbers, I believe it's like Numbers, you know, between chapters 1 and 3 roughly. They go through the leaders of each tribe in the wilderness. That's when Yahuwah had established the houses and and Nashon was the leader of the tribe of Yehuda. Man, he a direct descendant of Yahushua HaMashiach. Yeah. Nashon's sister, that was the big revelation back in the day. His sister ended up marrying Aharon, y'all, Moshe's brother. And so the first families of the high priest was Aharon, Nashon's sister. I forgot her name. She's not listed on here. But Nashon's sister and their children made up the lineage of the high priest. So the high priestly, the lineage of the high priest. See, this is very important, y'all. I can't emphasize it enough because Yahusha is considered a high priest in a Shamayim. And there was this thing that's like, okay, well, how can Yahusha be the high priest when he's not a descendant of Aharon? The high priests are not the same. The high priest, let me say this again. So people will say, how is Yahusha a high priest when he's not a Levite? That's the word. That's what I was going to say. But the high priest wasn't technically the Levites. It was more to it than that. They were Levites, but it was more to it than that. The high priest made up the sons of Aharon specifically. That's who the high priests were. And the children of Aharon made up this combination of Aharon, the Levite, and his wife, who was in the direct lineage, or who was in the same bloodline as Yahushua HaMashiach. His wife was a descendant of Judah, sister of Nashon of the tribe of Judah, who was a direct forefather of Yahushua. So the high priest was this mixture. The lineage of the high priest, you can technically say, was this mixture between Levi and Yehuda, in a sense. Yes. Yes.
That's major.
And so, Yahushua being a high priest in the Shamayim in the order of Melchizedek and different, like the scriptures say, and different things like that. And he's a king. He's a king and a priest. You can kind of see that dynamic in that mixture of Aharon and his wife, who was of Yehuda. All right, but nevertheless.
Can I say something real quick? Because see, check that out. That's important because what that shows you is the because even when you look at these names, y'all realize how many names were in Israel? How many people came through the lineage of Judah and through Jacob, even through Abraham and Isaac? All of the scripture has always pointed to this moment where there's this Mashiach who would come. I ain't gonna get too far ahead because we're gonna talk about some of that I know in Matthew, but just what Al-Mushal was saying with Yahusha's bloodline being connected to the Levites and to Judah, because that's really what you get when you get Melchizedek. That's Malki-Sedek. That's king of righteousness, and he was also the priest of Shalom. Both of those titles are ascribed to Yahusha. He was both king and priest. It's breaking up on here again? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just make it quick. So test. Okay, so curious said I was through. All right, so real quick, y'all. So yeah, anyway, I'm just saying that Melchizedek, Yahushua Mashiach is both king and priest. But anyway. Okay. Oh, okay. I think it's only on the YouTube when we're both unmuted. It looks like it's clear now. Okay, we through. Okay.
Through, okay. And Sheer gave a thumbs up, so we through. All right. But yeah, nevertheless, yeah, that stuff is powerful. So all right. Keeping on going. So all right, so we got Verse 4, Ram begot Aminadab, Aminadab begot Nashon, Nashon begot Solomon, Solomon begot Boaz. Oh, we know who that is. Solomon begot Boaz by Rahab, right? You see that in the book of Ruth. So what's that showing? Rahab, who was not even an Israelite, was in the direct descendancy of Yahushua Mashiach. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth. That's what I meant, Ruth. Ruth was not an Israelite. She was a Moabite. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth. Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot Dawid the king, the Melech. David the king begot Solomon by her who had been the wife of Uriah. So it's specifying the reality with that situation. That was Bathsheba. Solomon begot Rehoboam. Rehoboam begot Abijah, and Abijah begot Asa. Asa, and these are the lineage of kings. These were kings. Asa begot Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat begot Joram, and Joram begot Uzziah. Uzziah begot Jotham. Jotham begot Ahaz. These are all kings. Ahaz begot Hezekiah. Hezekiah, a famous one. Y'all remember him? Hezekiah begot Manasseh. Manasseh begot Ammon, and Ammon begot Josiah. We know about Josiah, the youngest king. Became king at 8. Josiah begot Jeconiah, and his brothers about the time they were carried away to Babylon, So, what we're seeing here is very interesting because there's a lot of people in the lineage of Yahusha that wasn't even that Thub. Some of these kings wasn't really that Thub of a king, and they were in the lineage of Yahusha. And after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconiah begot Shealtiel. Shealtiel begot Zerubbabel. Oh, snap. Is that the same bird, Zerubbabel? In the book of Zechariah.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't realized that.
Son of Shealtiel.
Yeah, that's interesting, for real. Sown in Babel, Zerubbabel. So he's a direct descendant of Yahusha, Hamashiach, a direct ancestor, I guess you could say that. Zerubbabel begot Abiud, Abiud begot Eliakim, Eliakim begot Azor, Azor begot Zadok, Zadok begot Akim, Akim begot Eliud, Eliud begot Eleazar, Eleazar begot Matan, Matan begot Yaakov, Yaakov begot Yosef, the husband of Mary. All right, so now we down to Yosef. Ak Yosef, man, he was a Thub-Ab, man. He was a Thub-Ab.
For real.
Of whom was born Yahusha, who is called Mashiach. So all the generations from Abraham to Dawid are 14 generations. Wow. From Dawid until the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations. And from the captivity in Babylon until Mashiach are 14 generations. Man. All praise to the Most High.
That shows you why you got to protect your bloodline. Y'all see that, man? That show you why you got to protect your bloodline. Because the bloodlines, there's 15 kings that Yahusha came through. That's not even counting Zerubbabel, who wasn't technically a king, but at that time, after post-Babylon, post-Persia captivity, he was like the governor. That was basically like the king, y'all.
God.
That's how he was moving. So it shows you the importance of your bloodline. Yahusha had to come down through this exact lineage. So the fact that they put this in Matthew, again, it shows you that, man, he had his mindset on, I'm writing to the Yahudim. And I know when I used to read this be a bedtime story right here. You start reading that genealogy if you want to. I'm going to sleep in the middle of service. But now that I'm seeing this with fresh eyes, it's like, oh, okay, now I see that the bloodline is important. And all these people here, I can see why Messiah had to come through all these things. So y'all protect your bloodline. Pay attention to who you're marrying. Don't marry just because, man, Abu Shah was talking about this at Shabbat. Don't marry just because you like, man, that boy got muscle. Don't marry her because she just built the right way or whatever it is. Y'all, look, marry to protect the bloodline because you got important things coming down through your bloodline.
Yeah, like seriously. Like that's why you gotta get to that point to where your mindset is on lineage, is on bloodline, is on even like legacy and different things like that, because man, that's the way our ancestors thought. You know, they wasn't just marrying in any kind of way. They was looking at the building of the kingdom. And so with that, you know, bloodline was very important when marrying into certain families, because when you marry into to someone, you're not just marrying them, you're marrying into a whole bloodline, a whole family, and the children and the seed that's brought forth through that union is going to be a product of that. And so you always got to keep that in mind. Very, very significant. All right. Now, verse 18. Now, the birth of Yahushua Mashiach was as follows. After his mother Mary, or it's really Miriam, that's the Hebraic. After his brother Miriam, after his mother Miriam was betrothed to Yosef, before they came together, she was found with child of the Ruach HaKodesh. All right. All right, Mishpacha. This is tough for people, you know. This is a tough one.
Let's do it.
But we're going to believe the record, okay? We're going to believe the record. It says she was found with child of the Ruach HaKodesh. I'll leave it at that. Then Yosef her Ish, being a just man and not wanting to make her a public example, was minded to put her away secretly. Now listen, if Joseph was the daddy, if Miriam was with child by Joseph, why did the record saying that he was going to put her away secretly? Why was he going to put her away when she got pregnant if he was the daddy? It's because this was some miraculous stuff that happened here. It was some different type of stuff that happened here, y'all. You got to believe the record, Mishpacha. These are the records pinned down by our fathers, by our ancestors. And we want to play around dilly-dally and come up with our own stuff with it when we read it. I don't really mean that, you know, because Joseph was the daddy. Joseph was the daddy. But it says this right here. But yeah, that don't mean that, you know. That ain't what it say. You know, we're not supposed to read that part. And they start getting into all this semantics. You never gonna lose believing the records, y'all. The records our fathers put together, okay? Verse 20. But while he thought about these things, behold, a malak of Adonai, or a malak of Yahuwah, appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of Dawid, do not be afraid to take to you Miriam, your Isha, your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Ruach HaKodesh. So y'all listen, this was so tough. Joseph was about to put her away. He had to get visited by a malak. He had to get visited by I know what a lot of y'all saying. A lot of the men, yeah, that would have been a tough one, man. That would have been a tough one to believe. It would have had to been something like that for me to get a malak would have had to visit me to believe that.
Got some studying to do.
Hey, but that's exactly what Yahuwah did. He sent a malak to visit him to let him know. See, this Yosef, Yosef, Yahusha's Ab, you know, his physical Ab, it's really like Yahusha's 100-fold Ab. This is one of the reasons why I submit Yahusha was so big with the 100-fold family, because Yahusha grew up in the 100-fold family. You know, his biological Ab wasn't there in the physical. Joseph was his 100-fold Ab. So even though, you know, the seed might not have came from Joseph's body, Joseph was Yahusha's Ab. Joseph was appointed to cover Yahushua HaMashiach as his Ab. In a sense, Yahushua HaMashiach from the beginning knew what it meant to have the 100-fold family. From the beginning. He grew up like that.
Man.
He grew up like that. Some of y'all might have didn't grow up with your biological father, but then the Most High put someone else in place to be able to fill in some of those voids, to fill in some of those roles. Could have been an uncle, could have been an older cousin, or it could have just been, someone who just had an affinity for you, maybe one of your homeboys' dad just took you under his wing, used to let you come over all the time. You chilling over there, you seen how your homeboy is with his dad, and he kind of covered you as a father and filled different voids that you had that you didn't realize at the time till you look back. You like, man, I didn't have my dad, but man, my homeboy friend that lived in our neighborhood, he used to always, take me to football games. He used to kind of just took me under his wing, and man, and it's crazy, man. That was a big deal. A lot of times you don't realize it till you look back. You're like, man, he really filled a lot of voids for me. That really helped me see, what it was. I learned a lot of stuff surrounding fatherhood from this guy. I learned like et cetera, et cetera. And then you look back, you're like, dang, that was Yahuwah who did that. Man, this is crazy. That was Yahuwah's will. I grew up with both of my parents, but my dad, they wasn't like into the like ruaco things like that. So, that's the thing that I didn't. I like they didn't do church and none of that. It was just about just you be a good person. You just do your thing. They might go to church on Easter. They might go Sundays every now and then, but they wasn't into that. But I remember growing up, I had this homeboy, and his parents were like pastors. They like had a church, and I used to go be at his house a lot of times and just used to see how that moved and how they was all into the Bible. Dad was his preacher. He would always be preaching, talking about the Most High and stuff like that. And even though they wasn't in the truth, that just when I was growing up, man, we grew up in the South. We grew up in Texas. I understand that the camps and stuff was always around up north, New York and stuff like that. But let me tell y'all something, man. Listen, that stuff did not exist in Texas.
Yeah, no. No.
I've never seen a camp before ever until YouTube came out in the in the early 2000s, and I was watching them dudes in New York going in. Never seen a camp that I can remember. I might have saw it and didn't know what it was. I think I might have saw something in Houston, but I didn't know what they was. So my point is, man, the only way we knew as far as anything close to trying to serve the Most High was to try to, like read the Bible and go to church. And so I remember looking back how that was a big thing. That helped a lot with just having my mind even thinking like that. Okay, what about, the Most High, what about the Bible, the scriptures and things like that. So nevertheless, y'all ever thought about that? Why did Yahuwah visit Yosef and be like, no, you need to marry Miriam, it's Thub. It's Thub. I mean, because I know a lot of people believe, single mothers, they can do it. Single mothers are strong. I raised my son all by myself and he's fine. You growing up, you used to hear stuff like that, from the single mother. And, that's single motherhood I know it's super, super hard. And I know a lot of archeo, they were forced in their situations. But at the same time, it shouldn't be something that's touted like that's how it should be or something like that. Or I can do this on my own type of thing. Because even in the situation with Yahushua HaMashiach, who was the seed of the Ruach HaKodesh, who had Yahuwah covering them, still was like, yeah, no, Joseph, no, don't go nowhere. No, you need to stay here. Go marry Miriam. I submit a big part of that was Yahuwah needed Yahushua HaMashiach to be raised up in the two-parent household, Ms. Parker. Yeah, I'm going to have you leading Yasharal. I need you, raised up a certain way.
Yeah.
And that was Joseph's function, was to be the hundredfold Ab for Yahushua HaMashiach. Even though, he didn't come directly from his loins and things like that, Joseph was set apart to be that hundredfold Ab to show, so that Yahushua would be raised up a certain way, in a way that was basically designed for sons and daughters to be raised up, and that's in the covering of a full household where you got Ab and Amar. Because surely, if anybody could have done it, it could have been Miriam and Yahusha to be raised up without that full thing and been able to be all right. Surely, if anybody, right? But even in Yahushua HaMashiach's case, Yahuwah made sure he had that hundredfold Ab right there. Some of y'all, you was trying to give y'all a hundredfold Ab, and y'all rejecting it. Yahuwah trying to see, because Yahuwah, knowing in his wisdom, knows what you need, and there's somebody trying to cover you, you're rejecting them. That's just some things to think about. Do you have anything on that?
Oh no, you said it all. You said it all. Because I know we got to look at that thing, man. We got to accept that thing. We have to have that hundredfold family to cover. So now I had nothing to add to that. That was it. We just really we look at that and we receive that because this is the way of the culture, y'all. That's why you had the kinsman redeemer. That's even getting ready to tie into this whole concept of Yahusha coming to, we ain't got to this verse yet, but he's going to come. He's going to be called Emmanuel, and we'll tie it back when we get there. But that's important. That's extremely important.
Con. So we'll keep going. All right. So verse 20. But while he thought about these things, behold, a malach. Okay, I read that already. Verse 21. I'll read 20 again. But while he thought about these things, behold, a malach of Yahuwah appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take you Miriam, your Isha, for that which is conceived in her is of the Ruach HaKodesh. And she will bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahusha, for he will save his people from their sins. So all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying, Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and bear a son, and they shall call him Emmanuel, which is translated Alua with us. That's a big deal. I believe, what's his name? Yeshayahu? Yeah, Yeshayahu 7. So this was even prophesied that she will come, that Mashiach will come in this miraculous way. It was prophesied. And listen, I know the arguments, okay? I know. We're not going to get into that Alma versus Betula. We can, we can get into that if anybody needs to. But I don't want to go super intellectual on this, on the prep day calls, unless we really need to explain and help people understand that even though it's, Betula versus Alma, it could mean a young maiden, but it means a virgin. It means someone who hasn't laid with somebody. Even in the Septuagint, it uses the word for the Greek is a lot more specific, and the Septuagint, y'all. The Septuagint is very, very old manuscript, y'all. Very old. It's older than most of the Hebrew manuscripts of the Tanakh, and it uses the specific Greek word for virgin. I can't remember the word. Parthenon something. It's the specific Greek word for virgin. I'm not talking about in MATITYAHU. I'm talking about in the prophecy in Yeshayahu, the prophecy in Isaiah that's talking about the virgin, that's prophesying the virgin birth of Yahusha. In the Septuagint, that word virgin in the Greek is a lot more specific. And so I said I wasn't going to get into that, but I did anyway. And it's just for, just so y'all know, so you just have an answer, because I know, man, it's a lot of schools that they
They're
don't
trying to
believe the
disprove it.
record.
Yeah, they're
They
trying
try,
to
they try
disprove
to
it with
say
it.
something different than what the records say, and I think it's important to just touch on it while we're going through that part, because, man, it's the wild, wild west in this awakening, Miss Parker. You got people out here say they Israelites don't believe the book. People out here say they Israelites don't read the Brit Hadashah. They say that they don't believe it. People that say they Israelites and deny Yahushua HaMashiach, who's the head of our Yasharal. Yasharal is his body in a sense. And they say they Yasharal but deny him. You know, it's the wild, wild west in this awakening, y'all. You even got schools that deny the Torah parts of they don't believe the parts of the Torah and Tanakh. They say you're supposed to be vegan. They say the parts of the sacrifices that ain't true. I know it reads that, but man, yeah, no. You know, and all kind of stuff. And so, you know, it's very important. To one thing about our people, one thing about Yasharal, one thing about our ancestors is that we recorded. We had scribes. We had people. The Most High, He allowed things to happen, but He also did things to preserve our records. He did things to preserve our records. I believe there's a lot more records out there that will come out in the future in due time. But we need to hold to what we have that's in existence right now. And believe it. Because whether you believe it or not, don't take it don't, you know, whether you believe it or not, you know, it's the reality of our history. And this is our history. This is our history. That's why it's important to believe the record. How are you going to deny our record, but then you read about Christopher Columbus and all that, and you just buy all that? You just said that's all true. He discovered America. You believe all that.
He's taking us up. Christopher Columbus, Ocean Blue. We be
Yeah.
honored.
And a lot of people in Yasharal, they'll deny the records and then quote these random scholars like and believe them over the records of our ancestors. How crazy is that? They'll quote a heathen Gentile scholar as if the Gentile trumps the records of our people. They'll quote from history books to try to discredit our record as if the history books and the writers of the history books have more precedence, have more authority than the records of our ancestors. Like, what in the world, Miss Parker? I just want to emphasize that as you move along, because you listen, there's a lot of deceptions out there. There's major deception going on right now. And we don't want to see that happen to y'all. We don't want to see y'all get swept up in that because that's something the Most High has been showing me for quite a while now. It's been for some months about this major deception sweeping through the Yasharal. It's gonna feel lonely as time persists because many people are gonna be swept up in these things. And so, nevertheless, let's keep going. Verse 24, then Yosef, being aroused from sleep, did as the Malach of Yahuwah commanded him, and took him his wife, his Isha, and did not know her. Let me read it again. And did not know her till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Yahusha. It's very clear. He did not know her. We know Hebraically, know her means he had not laid with her. So anyway, we ain't gonna beat a dead sheep. We're not gonna beat on a dead sheep. So we're gonna keep it going.
Let me say something real quick
Yes,
on
sir.
the Emmanuel part. So when that statement was made, that was like this declaration of war in a sense, y'all. So see that chapter, that verse, and what was that verse 23? Behold, the virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated Alua with us. So you got to understand where that's coming from. That's coming from Isaiah chapter 7. Now, we'll get to this in the prep day call, so I won't go too deep on that. But just to look at it in a vacuum, that statement happened during this time where it was Judah against Assyria and Israel. Two kings from Assyria and Israel had risen up to take over Judah. And they said, we're going to come take your land and we're going to put our own king there. So then he gets this message. Yeshayahu gets this message, or Isaiah, and he says that, hey, was it Hezekiah in the day? I think it was Hezekiah. The king is, I think, was it Hezekiah? Let me look real quick. Real quick. Thanks. Let's see. Uh, it was Ahaz. Okay. Moreover, Yahuwah spoke again to Ahaz. Okay, so yeah. So Isaiah goes to Ahaz and he's like, hey, you need to ask for a sign that Yahuwah about to do this thing. And he's like, yeah, I ain't gonna ask for a sign. Anyway, I said I ain't gonna get too deep into it. But basically, when this happened, Emmanuel, man, Chief Elect Yahushua explained this to us. He was teaching on this. It was powerful, y'all. But Emmanuel does not mean Yahuwah with everybody in the world. It doesn't. Remember, I told you that Matthew is dealing with the kingdom of Judah. He's dealing with the southern
Yeah,
kingdom. He's
that's
dealing
it.
with Yahudim. So when it says have this child and name him Emmanuel, y'all, that was like, nah, Yahuwah with us. Ain't it funny that we started this around the time in Babylon where they like to sing that name and use that name and you know what I'm saying? They connect it to their
Man.
pagan holiday. Nah, Emmanuel means Yahuwah is with us. He not with everybody in the world. He with us. So that's the power behind why Yahushua had been born at this time, why Jacob and Mary had to move it the way that they did. Because see, this even goes back to what Al Mushal was talking about when he's talking about how um, the hundredfold family and the covering. Because let's look at one more verse. Look at this. I'm gonna connect it. Go if you look at Matthew, you go back to chapter 1. Hopefully y'all are there already. Let me get back there on my screen real quick. On Matthew 1, look at what it say in verse 21. And she shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahusha, for he will save his people from their sins. So when you think about it, what did this look like? What did salvation from sins look like? Because remember, when he was born, a lot of people thought he was gonna come, he's gonna be on a white horse, he's gonna, have a sword in his hand, and he's about to kill all the Romans. Nah, I submit to y'all that the way that he saved the people from their sins, was through the destruction. But that's why he also said that name him Emmanuel because he is with us. Alua is with us. Why was the fulfillment of that prophecy? Because right after Yahusha would die, y'all, we didn't, or when Yahusha would come, we didn't reign supreme in Rome. Rome still had their foot on our neck. So what does it mean he will save his people from his sins? Well, okay. So after his death, his burial, his resurrection, and things like that, will we save from our sin? I would say it's a little bit on the contrary. I would say that what happened after that is Rome came and finished the job. They destroyed everybody. And it wouldn't be until the time of this last captivity that we would actually begin to see a level of ruka and redemption from our sins. This is part of the reason Yahushua had to come. Now, I know I jumped ahead in Matthew a little bit, but we'll lay it out and we'll see it fully. But part of the reason that Yahushua had to come was to save the people from sins, and the salvation didn't look like dominion in that day. But on the contrary, let's look at Daniel real quick. I ain't gonna speak on it too long, but let's go to Daniel 7. I'm just read it for y'all. No, it ain't Daniel 7. What is it? Daniel 2. Y'all remember this dream? This is Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? He sees this statue. It has gold and bronze and silver and all these different things. But look at what happens. Because when we look at this statue, I mean, I wish I would have said this at the beginning, but when we look at the statue, we're looking at Rome. In the statue, I think Rome was the iron legs. So that's where we are in Matthew. When we connect Daniel and Matthew, we're looking at the iron legs, and that's the kingdom of Rome. But look what happens. There's going to be one more major kingdom after Rome. Um, let's skip down to Daniel chapter 2. I'm gonna look at verse Da, 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 da. I'm gonna start at verse. I'm gonna start at verse. Start at verse 40, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna start at verse 40. So this is Daniel 2:40. I'm gonna wrap this real quick. But it says, "In the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, and as much as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything." You want to pull it up? Okay, hallelujah. Chapter 2, verse 40. Mhm. Let me make sure that we're on the same page. Because remember, it says that he's gonna be born and he's gonna save the people from their sins. Didn't happen in Rome, y'all. I'm gonna show you where it happened in Daniel 2, where it's gonna happen. Because remember, salvation to a Western mindset, when we went up to church, we'd be like, you come up there and you get saved. And then you go sin and you come back and you get saved again. You go sin and you come back and you get saved again. But remember, Matthew is written to a Hebrew. So when they read he's going to save, that means we're going to get our land back. We're going to get our laws back. We're going to have our own king. We're going to have our own rulership. We're going to have our own culture. We're going to be on our own again, and Yahuwah going to be with us. That's what salvation means. So when it says he's going to save them from their sins, that means that, hey, I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them in their own land again. All right. So this is how it connects to Daniel 2. Look at verse 40. It says, "In the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others." This is talking about Rome. This is where we are in Matthew. Verse 41, this is where we are today. Remember, because we're building up to this whole salvation thing. "Whereas you saw the feet and toes partially of potter's clay and partially of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay." Now I know Musa covered this when he did Daniel and talked about how the similarities between America and Rome. That's why we have a republic. That was a very Roman thing. I should say they have a republic. We live in a republic. It's not a democracy like that, it's a republic. But anyway, verse 42, "And as the toes of the feet were partially of iron and clay, and partially of clay, so the kingdom shall be partially strong and partially fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, Alua of the Shamaim will set up a kingdom which shall not be destroyed." Y'all, read it again. "And in the days of these kings," this is in this final captivity, "Alua of the Shamaim will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed." This is the salvation. This is why Yahusha died. This is why he died. Because remember, I told you, when he died, we did not get our own land back. Matter of fact, we got scattered even further after he died because that death was on us. This is what salvation looks like. This is Daniel 2:44. This is what he came for. This is his name, Yahusha. "And in the days of these kings, the Lord of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever."
Man.
That is the mindset in which, when we look at Matthew chapter 1, let me go back there. When we look at Matthew chapter 1 and we see verse 21 say, "And she will bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahusha, and he will save his people from their sins." Y'all, we live in a great day and age. Verse 21 again, and she will bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahusha, for he will save his people from their sins. This is the day and age in which we live in, Mishpachah. This, I submit that this did not happen until after this fourth kingdom rose. But right now in Matthew, we're in the third kingdom. That's why he says, "Call and they shall call his name Emmanuel," because now Alua is with us.
Come. Man. Yeah, that's powerful. All right. So moving on to chapter 2. Let's see how we looking on time. Let's see how we looking. All right, how long we been on? Let's see. Been on about an hour and 20. Okay. Not too bad. All right, let's go. Now, after Yahusha was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the Melech king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born king of the Yahudim? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So as you see, when the word came out that Yahusha, the prophesied Melech, son of David, descendant of David, the prophesied king, was born, that troubled Herod. Y'all, Herod was the king in Jerusalem. So why would something like that, the prophesied Mashiach being born, why would that trouble the king of Jerusalem? Because y'all know that the kings in Jerusalem are supposed to be sons of David. And all the kings of Jerusalem was waiting for that to happen, the righteous ones. So I submit what this is showing right here is that Herod was not an Israelite.
Facts.
He was not. And if you look at some of the records, you look in Josephus and some records like that, historically, Herod was an Edomite. So he was of a different nation ruling over Jerusalem. Herod was a puppet, okay? He was a puppet leader that was raised up by Rome, okay? Because Jerusalem was under Roman captivity. And Rome wasn't just going to let anybody be king over Jerusalem. He looked for a black face. Okay, you look like you an Israelite. You know, it's close enough. You're going to be the leader. And he rose up, and then they set up Herod to be the leader over Jerusalem. He was a puppet. He was in bed with Rome, Mishpachah, and he was not an Israelite. So that's why he was troubled when he heard about the prophesied king being born. You know, that troubled him, and the king was a baby. And that still troubled him. You know, most people, that wouldn't have troubled you, especially with it being baby. Okay, that won't even be no threat till he maybe, you know, another 18 years or something, 19, 20 years, maybe. That might be something I need to look at. No, he was troubled that a baby was born who was prophesied to be the king. And you're not going to be troubled like that unless you are seriously insecure about your position. You know you're not supposed to be there. You know you ain't no son of Judah. You know you're not no son of David. You're not from the lineage of the kings. So whenever you insecure, whenever someone's insecure about something, that's when they overreact, boy. Don't nobody overreact more than an insecure person who's insecure in the position they're in the status that they're in. Knowing they're not fit, knowing that they're not through, knowing that they're a puppet. They didn't deserve to be in that position. They were placed there. And so verse 3, when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. All Jerusalem was troubled with him. Y'all listen, Jerusalem at this time was being overran by the Romans and the Edomites. They wasn't worried about no Yahusha trying to come, who was prophesied in the scriptures. They would rather not. They was happy they was happy with the Roman captivity. They was happy with Rome ruling things. Rome made them comfortable where they was at. But when it says all Jerusalem, you got to understand what it means. Is because the Kodesh they was happy about this. They excited, and they was in Jerusalem too. But it's a figure of speech. We do that today. Hebrews do that today. They'd be like, man, I was at this get together. I was at this party. Everybody was up there. That don't mean literally everybody in the world was at that party. That don't mean that. It means it was a good large amount of people from the circle that was there. That's what it means. But everybody was up there, man. You know, and so Hebrews always that you see that sometimes, you know, here it don't mean all Jerusalem, all the Kodesh. They weren't troubled about Yahusha coming. Oh no, they was excited about that. They was looking forward to that. But when you're talking about the Romans, the Edomites, those were the people that were really like, in charge. Those are because the Romans rose them up to be in charge. The Edomites look like us, but they weren't us. See, y'all ever heard the term "all Israel ain't Israel"? Yeah, that was what was going on back then. You had a lot of the Pharisees, a lot of the in the Pharisaic order during the man. They was Edomites. A lot of them. They look like us, but they weren't us. And they was moving accordingly. We'll get there. I don't want to just skip ahead, but there was even the scripture where one of them dudes, they was like, man, we was never no descendants of no slaves. We ain't no children of slaves. They were probably what they were saying without saying is that they weren't Israelites, y'all. They was probably the Edomites, some of the Edomites that were there.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, let's keep going. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where Mashiach was to be born. So he got the leaders he got the people who were the authorities in the scriptures now. He's like, man, what did the prophecy say? What did the prophecy say, man? Where he gonna be born at? So they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Yehuda, are not the least among the rulers of Yehuda. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Yasharah. That should be Thub news. That should be, they would be, all praise to the Most High. That should be something he was praising Yahuwah for if he was really like an Israelite. It was prophesied this was going to come. How was somebody who an Israelite would try to stop something that Yahuwah prophesied? The only time you see that happen is, well, for the most part, is with other nations. For the most part. The time I can think of where that wasn't the case was when Joseph, he had gave a dream, that was basically prophetic from the Most High, and his brothers did try to stop that. But as far as stuff that is prophesied in the scriptures by the prophets, and then someone seeing that and wanting to stop that, you usually see that being an issue like the heathen trying to do. For example, even in today's day, that's why the heathen, I submit, one of the reasons why they've been trying to put their foot on our necks for so long. They know that we're prophesied to rule this place. They know that. See, we the people who don't know that. They know. We the only one. We like the only one that didn't know this stuff. The other nations been known that. One of the reasons why they went to great lengths to, like, for example, in this captivity, we wasn't allowed to read. It would like being just knowing how to read would be the death penalty in this captivity. In the beginning of this captivity, during chattel slavery in Babylon and America, just learning how to read would be the death penalty for that. Why in the world was learning how to read such a big deal to the people who had us in captivity here? You think they was afraid of us reading the newspaper? What do you think it was? They didn't want us reading the scriptures. They knew that was our book. They knew who we were. They knew to keep the foot on the neck is the way to keep them in power, and us rising up and being and flourishing and being in our rightful place meant the end of their reign. Us rising up and flourishing meant the end of their rulership. Us leading up and ruling as is prophesied mean that they cannot rule anymore. That meant the end of their reign. That's why Herod was troubled. You're not no Israelite, so Yahusha raising up and to be king and being born, and that prophecy, that's the end of your reign. That's the end of you. That's why he was troubled. That's why he was troubled. All right.
And that just real quick,
Yep.
yeah, that's y'all gotta really, really see, man. Like, this is the story, y'all. This is what Yahushua came to do. That's why Herod was terrified. So even looking at this, so Matthew 2:6, what he read here says, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. This is really saying, are you not the least? Because we can, I'm gonna show you why I said that in a minute. But okay, yeah, okay, I can. Oh, you see it now? Okay. But I'm gonna read verse 6 again. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So this is coming from Micah, the book of Micah. Now, we're talking about Yeshayahu a lot, and Micah is a contemporary of Yeshayahu. What that means is that they wrote around the same time. So let's go to Micah chapter 5, verse 2, just real quick. I want y'all to see this. Because when we're talking about the Basora and we're talking about salvation, I'm trying to get the mindset. So we're reading this through the lens of a Yahudim, because when they read that, they would have known that they were talking about Micah. But so the background of Micah, just real quick, when you read chapters 1 through 4, this is basically Yahuwah saying, I'm about to judge Israel because y'all wicked. I'm gonna judge your rulers. I'm gonna judge your priests. I'm gonna judge your shepherds. I'm gonna judge all of them because y'all are wicked to me. But then when you get to the end of chapter 4, really the beginning of chapter 4, you'll see very similar language to what we talked about on the prep day. And for those who don't know Hebrew left behind, we talked about it as there as well. It's this great redemption that's going to come. It's going to be the mountain of Yahuwah. There's going to be a mountain above mountains. And then Yahuwah is going to rescue Zion. He's going to redeem us from the land that he has cast us to. Now, think about this. They were still in their land in the days of Matthew. That's why I'm trying to really press this point that y'all, salvation, the Basora, is about the things that we're getting ready to happen or already happening. They're not even getting ready to happen. They already here. This is, man, Malek Yahusha says this, and it stuck with me when he said it, and I understand why. We are living in the greatest day in history. We are living. This is why in Hebrews it talked about how Abraham longed to see that day. They didn't even see salvation. Matter of no, I said that backwards. I blended two scriptures. Yahusha says that Abraham longed to see his day. And in Hebrews chapter 12, they talk about the ancestors are those that did not experience the salvation. They didn't see it, but they longed to see it. Y'all, that's the day we in. So when we get to Micah chapter 5, this is after judgment and during the regathering of the people. Verse 1 says, Now gather yourself in troops, O daughter of troops. This is Micah chapter 5, verse 1. Now gather yourself in troops, O daughter of troops. He has laid siege against us. They will strike the judge of Israel with the rod on the cheek. Here's verse 2. This is what was just quoted in Matthew. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, I don't know what that word means. I have to look into that. Though you are little among thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be the ruler of Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting. This
Hold
is
on.
mhm.
Man, hold up.
Oh, go in there, jump in there.
Man, who's going forth are from of old. That means just Yahusha was always around.
That's it.
He was around. That wasn't his first time entering into the earth realm. Just highlighting that.
Because you just talked about that at the beginning. From of old. His goings forth. So what that means, the goings forth, that doesn't mean he went out. That means to go out and come back, to go out and come back. Oh snap. Yeah, man. That's Jacob's ladder, y'all. That's Jacob's ladder. And they're from everlasting. That means that's probably the word olam there, if I had to guess. Or maybe odd. Let me see what that is. Oh man, that's like, yeah, that's quite a few words. Yeah, olam, okay. Olam. So when we're looking at Matthew, this is what my point was. Like when we're looking at Matthew, when we're thinking about the Basora, y'all, this is dealing with our day. This is where we are because he's going to gather us together. Aren't we gathered together? Look at the assembly. Ain't gonna be long because I know we got to keep going, but look at the assembly. We are gathered from all over the place. Go to your assembly. Look, we're not all from Austin. We're not even all from Texas, let alone the United States. So he's gathering us together. And now, anyway, I'm gonna stop at that. So the salvation, when we're reading Matthew, this is what would have wrong in their mind. They would have thought about Micah and the promise of, man, he's gonna destroy us and then he's gonna rule over us and he's gonna redeem us. I'm gonna give it back to you though. I just wanted to add that in there.
Man, no, that's dude. That's dude. So keeping it going. So that was the prophecy from Micah 5:2. In verse 7 it says, Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem. So, that's house of bread or house of war. You could also say Bethlehem. Lachem, it means bread, but it's also the same word, means war. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the young child. And when you have found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also. When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now, it's interesting that the star, it was seen in the east. That's very interesting because the Hebrew word for east is kadem. It's kuf dalet mem. Kuf dalet mem. And kadem, if the numerical value is 144, like 144,000. Yeah, kuf 100, dalet 4, mem 40. And so when you look at the east also it means that the ancient past, in a sense, like going before the past, the ancient times, and also it means it's 144. That's the concept. I submit an aspect of the 144,000 is that these people who are of old, these people who are ancient people who move in the ancient ways of the Most High. The Kodesh way. That's what you always want to look at. You want to look towards the east. It is even a custom of our fathers that when they prayed toward the east, which we know that's where from most directions, at least out here that's where Jerusalem is. That's where our land is in a sense, or at least our original land. Even no matter where, we're not getting into exactly where. Actually, it don't matter. If you think it's still east. If you think it's this area, that area, if you think it's Africa, whatever, it's still east. So, that also I submit it's a connotation of the ancient past, the ancient ways, the ways of our fathers. So yeah, let's see here. Is there a way you can do it to where? Let's see. But yeah, nevertheless, we're gonna keep going. All right. When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Miriam his mother, and he fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, oh, hold on. I got to point this out. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Miriam his mother. And what did they do? They fell down and worshipped him. I had to throw that in there. I had to highlight that. We're reading the record and we believe in the record. Because some people I'm pointing these things out because you will hear these things if you haven't heard them before.
Talk about it.
But man, you'll have people that they say they Israelites, but say you're not supposed to worship Yahusha. That's idolatry. You're not supposed to worship Yahusha.
How sweet.
That's idolatry. But man, it don't look like the Most High had an issue with them falling down and worshiping Yahusha, and that's when he was a young child. I mean, we gotta look at the record and roll with what the records say, not with what we think, not with our own trying to reason in our own mind certain things and things like that. Gotta believe the record. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then being divinely warned when in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. So, as we see here, They moved around because Yahuwah visited them in a dream. So this is just showing you it's interesting that we're looking at how Yahuwah was visiting and showing how he was sending Malachim and messengers to come and visit people in their dreams to give them information, to give them messages and warnings. This is showing you the significance of dreams. And it's interesting, right before we got into this, we did a whole series on dreams and dream interpretation. Y'all listen, it's a whole lot. We really just scratched the surface, but it's just, man, you know, we had to go ahead and it was time to go into something different. But, you know, it's through to look at it if y'all haven't looked at the series we did on the dream interpretation. But, yeah, we really, man, we kind of barely scratched the surface, but it's still got a lot of through feedback, very helpful. We even interpreted some dreams just to kind of, you know, give you some of those understandings and help you kind of, you know, pray through and maybe get understanding on dreams. The Most High may be showing you, because usually when the Most High sends you a dream, it's not going to be just, it's going to take getting understanding. It's going to take, you know, interpreting the dream. It's usually not going to be just straightforward. So nevertheless, going to verse 13. Now when they had departed, behold, a malach of Yahuwah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Mitzrayim, and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Man, listen. I'm telling you, listen. Joseph was a thub ab to Yahusha, man. Joseph was a dreamer. He had dreamed before that, didn't he? He's a dreamer just like the Joseph in the Torah, huh? Joseph in the Torah was a dreamer too, wasn't he? You know what I'm talking about? The son of Yaakov, Joseph, who had those dreams and those prophetic dreams, and that he would rule and things like that. So this Joseph, who's Yahushua HaMashiach's 100-fold Ab, man, he was a dreamer. Yahuwah had visited him again to let him know, hey, listen, you got to get out of here and go to Egypt, because man, Herod's going to seek out your son. He's going to seek out the young boy. You know, it's interesting. Yeah, like, listen, he didn't visit, the Most High didn't visit Miriam with a dream on this. He dealt with Joseph on this one. He dealt with Joseph on this one. And so that just lets you know the significance of the 100-fold Ab. Just lets you know the significance of that, having that covering. There's things the Most High show the 100-fold Ab that he might not show mama. And then vice versa. This was a very important dream. What if he didn't pay attention to that dream? What if he didn't write the dream down and forgot about it? Man, I woke up. Man, I had this dream yesterday. I forgot to write it down. Man, I forgot the details.
Would have been bad news bears.
Yeah, but Joseph was a thub. He paid attention. He was in tune with the Most High, and he received that dream, and he understood what it meant and moved accordingly. This is not what I'm saying, though. Let me say this. Yeah, I'm not saying to jump and make life-changing decisions based off of a dream you got. I'm not saying to do that. But there may be times where the Most High will show you something where you do need to do that. And he may show you that through a dream. But Joseph was a covering. He was a covering. So, with him and in his position and in his office, being the head of the household that Yahushua Mashiach was being raised up in, Yahuwah visited him with that thing and for him to do. But y'all got coverings, and y'all will receive a dream and will try to make a major decision outside of your covering. in contrary to what your covering telling you to do. That's out of order. That's different. Joseph was the covering. And so, man, he moved. That was a big decision, y'all. They had to flee to Mitzrayim. You know, imagine going to your wife, man. Akeem, imagine going to your wife. Hey, listen, we got to get out of that. We got to move out of this city. It's some calamity finna hit. So we got to move out of here. We got to go out to I don't know. Let's say Mexico. We're gonna have to go to Mexico. You got to be a submitted wife to just roll with that too. You got to really believe your ish and believe you hear from Yahuwah to roll with that too. That's a big decision. Mexico, I'm not trying to do that. What about my people, my family? I'm not trying to go out there. Listen, it's finna be some calamity finna hit here for real. The Most High showed this to me. We going. So this is showing you how submissive Miriam was. Miriam was like a Sarai. She just rolled with her. It's like when Abraham, when that famine hit and he went to Mitzrayim, Sarai just rolled with it. Okay, let's just go. Hey, if we gotta go, let's go. And so that's how it was. So you can see here that Yahusha was raised up in a Thub family. They were not a rich family. They were not a wealthy family. They actually were more, they were a young family. Well, at least Miriam was young, what the understanding is. And they were, like what we would consider like a working class family. They did not have much. It's interesting how Yahuwah brought Yahusha through a household that wasn't like rich or wealthy. Someone or a family with prestige. They were very normal people, normal family that didn't have much. This is how Yahusha grew up. And we'll go into that when we get to that point of some things that shows that. But nevertheless, let's keep going. So let's see. Now when they had departed, behold, a malach of Yahuwah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Mitzrayim, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed for Mitzrayim, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I called my son. Now this is a very important prophecy. I talk about this a lot on how to even interpret prophecy and how to interpret dreams. That this prophecy is in Hosea, and we're going to look at this because I just want to show this to y'all again. I talked about this some times past, multiple times, but it's been a while, so this is a good place to kind of revisit. Hosea 11, verse 1. This is the prophecy they said that was about Yahusha fleeing to Mitzrayim from Herod. Hosea 11, chapter 1, it says, when Yahusha was a child, when the son of Elua was a child.
No, that ain't what it say.
It says, when Israel was a child, I loved him. And out of Mitzrayim, I called my son. So this is clearly a prophecy about Israel. Clearly. Oh man, I ain't shared a thing. Hold on, let's see here. Here we go. Hosea 11, verse 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Mitzrayim I called my son. Out of Egypt. That's the prophecy attributed to Matthew chapter 2, verse 15, where it says, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I called my son. They said that was about Yahusha, but when you go to the prophecy, it's about Israel. So a lot of people have a hard time getting through that. See, that prophecy, that ain't about Yahusha. It says right here, it's about Israel. See? And that I use that as an example to show the many layers of prophecy. See, Israel, in a sense, is like his body.
That's it.
So a
That's
lot
it.
of prophecy surrounding Yahusha, a lot of times aligns with the nation of Israel. Malek Yahusha talks about this, how Yahusha, Hamashiach, how he was, striped, how he was, beaten, he was mocked and things like that. And then you see that happened to Yasharel when we went into captivity. Um, and then this is just some other things, some revelation in the past, just surrounding a lot of things that Yahusha did, kind of mirrored a lot of things that Yasharal did in history. Like Yahusha was in the wilderness for 40 days. Yahusha HaMashiach, the children of Israel were in the wilderness 40 years, right? When Yahusha was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, he was fasting. Well, it said he was being tempted and tested. When the nation of Israel was in the wilderness for 40 years, the scriptures say Yahuwah put Israel in the wilderness for 40 years in Deuteronomy chapter 8 to test them, to try them. After Yahushua was in the wilderness being tempted by Hasatan for 40 days and 40 nights, what happened? Then he went into the water and got immersed. After the nation of Israel were in the wilderness for 40 years, what happened? They went through the water. They were immersed. They were immersed. So you see these patterns. They had to cross through the waters. I'm sorry, right before they went into the wilderness. Right before Yahushua went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, he was immersed. And then right before the children of Israel were in the wilderness for 40 years, they went through Yahuwah split the seas. They went through the waters. It was an immersion. Paul even said that. He said that the children of Israel were all immersed when they went through the split sea. They're all under the same immersion in a sense. Those are just a couple of examples, but there's a whole lot more than that. But that ain't what we're talking about today. But just generally speaking, you see these patterns, because Yahusha, he encompasses the whole nation in one person, and so there were things he did that aligned with the history of the nation. All right.
Just real quick
Yep.
on that. So that pattern is important to recognize, because when you get to Revelation, you see it again in Revelation 12. There was a woman, had 12 stars on her head. She births a child. The child's called to the Shamayim. And where does that woman flee to? The wilderness. Why? Because the dragon will open up his mouth, spill out water, and then the woman is hidden in the wilderness. Because this is one thing Israel has forgotten, that Yahusha is the body. We are his body. So the things that happen to us happen to him. The things that happen to him will happen to us. That's just a major point. Even when you talked about how he was bruised for our iniquities, he received these stripes and all these different things. He was hung on a tree. Guess what turned around and happened to us? Beaten, bruised, we were hung on trees. It's important to recognize that, because there's another layer to the prophecy that's pointing forward still, that he's going to call us out of Egypt. In this place, Sodom, it says spiritually Sodom and Egypt, and he's going to call us out of this. But see, if we stop at the Tanakh and the Torah, then we ain't going to never see it. We'll never see it, because we won't receive the Messiah. We're not going, even though he's been on the earth for generations, like we talked about earlier. Let me say this too. I saw we got Hadar Shimshon on. I'm gonna say deep to you. See you on the
Rudeem.
YouTube. I'm
All
praising the
praise to
Most High.
Yahuwah.
That's all I wanted to add, though. I was sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let me see something. Let's see what we got so far. No, we had looking at Aliyah Shishon, Shalom, Shalom, Uriel Yahu, Shalom, Shalom, Azan Yahu, Shalom and blessings, Octeria Phillips, Shalom, Shalom, Amiri 1920, shalom and blessings. Raphael, shalom and barakot, fam. Guriya Vestra, shalom, shalom. Shimshon, Houdin. Let's see. He said, the kingdom of Yahuwah is between us. That's the gospel of Yahusha. The kingdom of Yahuwah is between us. I don't get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you meant there is the kingdom of the Lord is within us, and that's so back to the beginning of the call for those who can receive it. It's about these sons of light. And if you have a hard time with that concept, go to skipping ahead, go to Matthew 11 and see what Yahusha says of Yehukanan the Immerser. He's gonna say he is Eliyahu who was to come. So the kingdom of the Shamayim being within us is an important concept that you brought out, but it in itself is not the Basora. There wouldn't have been a Yahudim that saw that and said, okay, this is what this means. It's not that, it's not that you're thinking is wrong. It's just that that's the concept, that's a part of a deeper concept. But the Basora itself, or the gospel of the Messiah itself, is different. Because remember, the word Basora claim. It would have been something that was openly proclaimed and spoken about often. But we'll see a little bit of it. I'm glad you commented though. Man, keep adding the comments in there, and let's keep walking through this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then Raphael, he said, is it safe to say our salvation will come with war, and him coming on a cloud represents warfare, judgment? I can see that when it talks about that he's coming in the clouds, that he's coming, in a sense to take dominion, which could definitely, we know when Yahushua's coming, he's coming to take over, he's coming to take dominion, and that that's gonna take war. So I can see that. I can see that. All right, when Yahakan Little says, so 400 years captivity could be similar in significance. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just say yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Yeah, Imayasha, I'm starting to catch on. It's Sheer was right on the money. If I'm unmuted at the same time as Bukis are gone, then it'll cause them to cut out. But Toda, let us keep us in the loop if something makes sense, if it's cutting out again. Amiri said, Shalom, I emailed the email you gave me and I haven't heard back from anyone. I don't know if I emailed the wrong address or if it's inactive. Okay. No, Toda for telling me that. No, I was assuming you was through, so I'll follow up with you on that. No worries. We got you, no problem. We're gonna get you covered. All right. So let's keep going. All right, let's get it back going. What we on verse 15. Verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise man, was was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children, who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise man. Wow. So the calamity came that that Yahuwah showed Joseph in the beginning, and he showed him, like, yeah, I got to get out of here. It's going to be some calamity. Now this is similar, y'all, to what happened to Moshe. Okay, Moshe, he was living in a time where Pharaoh decided to just to go against all the male children that were birthed, and I submit that it don't say it as clearly in the Torah surrounding Pharaoh when he did this, but it's the same thing. Pharaoh, he was very insecure in his position. He was scared that Yasharal will rule over them. And so his idea was to cut down all the male children. And so Moshe, his parents, it was his mother, I'll say his mother, had to do certain things, and I submit Yahuwah had to have showed her that for her to do that. She had put him in a river, put him in a ark, and then put it in the river and just let it go. Um, I really believe Yahuwah probably visited her, just like Yahuwah visited Yosef and showed her to do that. And then it led to Moshe being delivered from that situation. That was in Mitzrayim. It's interesting that this situation, in order for them to be protected from it, was from the calamity that was happening in Israel. They had to flee to Mitzrayim this time. But I just thought that was interesting nevertheless. And so, keeping that in mind, you see these parallels, because Moshe was set apart to what? To deliver Yasharal. He was set apart to do that. And we see Yahusha is set apart to do that as well. So verse 17, it says, Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Yirmiyahu the prophet, saying, A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning. Rachel or Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. And this is really interesting that reading the Brit Hadashah will really help you to understand prophecy. Because, man, when you look at this prophecy, man, this is in Yirmiyahu 31:15. And it's like, man, it says Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted. We know that Rachel or Rachel was, that was Jacob's, wife. That was his, that was his other wife. He had Leah and Rachel were the two main wives. And they're saying, man, this prophecy is referring to when this great calamity hit Yasharal during the times of Yahusha, when Herod made this edict or decree to kill all the children two and younger. So keeping that in mind, let's just look at it real quick, because it helps you to really see how things, you'll be able to kind of start to understand other prophecies when you see how these prophecies work. Jeremiah 31:15, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah. All right. Thus says Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children because they are no more. All right. So, the region that Herod was targeting was Bethlehem, because remember, it was prophesied that he would be born in Bethlehem. And so, one of the reasons why I believe, let me see something. Let me make sure before I speak on it. But I believe Rachel, I think she died in Bethlehem. So I believe so. Let me make sure though. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, she did. So let's go to Bereshit 35. Bereshit 35. And this is when Rachel died in verse 19. It says, So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar on her grave, which is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. So even her grave was there. That's why I submit one of the reasons why Rachel was mentioned as her weeping for her children, because Rachel, by our ancestors, was probably always associated with Bethlehem, because that's where she died at. She died in that region, and that's where her grave was. You see what I'm saying? That's where our tomb was. So we gotta understand how you gotta, man, when you're reading prophecy, because it's similar with dreams. All this stuff is from the Ruach, so it's similar. When you look at it, probably you gotta really seek Yahuwah for the understanding. It ain't always how it seems. There's multiple layers to this thing. And so, verse 16. Oh, there we go. No, we down further. Here it goes. Verse 18. A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. Man. So, That's just some things to look at, and then you can look at even, this was in Yehuda, um, but Bethlehem was just one of those regions. We'll keep reading verse 19. Now, when Herod was dead, behold, a Malach of Yahuwah appeared in a dream to Joseph in Mitzrayim, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Yasharah, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. So when you look at history, you'll see that Yahuwah judged Herod, y'all. You look at the history on what happened to Herod, is some craziness. He got killed though. It ain't like he died of old age or something like that. I think, did he have like this crazy disease or something? It was something crazy. I got to look it up again. But you can tell Yahuwah judged him, and then the Most High, they visited Joseph. Okay, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. This is a pattern. Yahuwah will have you lead. This happened throughout the scriptures. Moshe had to flee Mitzrayim. He had to flee Egypt because Pharaoh was after his life. And then he stayed in Egypt for he stayed in the wilderness for a long time until Yahuwah visited Moshe at the burning bush and said it's time to go back. One of the reasons I submit that Pharaoh that was after his life wasn't there no more. He died. He passed away. You had other times where, there's this time where Yahuwah will tell a person to leave an area only to go back at an appointed time. Even Abraham, Yahuwah told him to leave his family. But then there was an appointed time where it was time to go back. Abraham didn't go back himself, but he sent Eleazar, who was an extension of him, to go back to his family to get a wife for his son. Moshe, when he fled Mitzrayim, he had to go back to do what? I submit, to get a wife. To get a wife for his Ab. Moshe's Ab was Yahuwah. Eleazar went to go, get a wife for his master. Yitzhak, Abraham, for his master's son. Let me use that for his master's son. That still works. So Abraham went to go. He sent Eleazar to get a wife that was Ribkah, for who? For Eleazar's master, who's Abraham, his son. Moshe went to go get. He had to go back into Mitzrayim to do what? To get a bride, to deliver the bride, to get for who? For his master Yahuwah's son. You can look at it like that, Yahusha. You see what I'm saying? And now you have, this situation here where, Yahusha had to flee Mitzrayim. It was his dad. Yahusha was a young child, but it was time for him to come back now. After he was died, he had to come back. That had to mean, y'all gotta think about it, man, are you sure? Because, man, word on the street, man, it was massacre. The Most High, no, you through, you can go back. They had a lot of trust in Yahuwah. They had a lot of trust in Yahuwah. It's one thing to trust the Most High when he says to leave a place, but, man, it's layers to this. You also got to trust him when he says you need to go back now, too. Listen, man, this is real. Some of y'all, the Most High had y'all to kind of distance yourself from your family, to maybe go to another city to do something like that, so you can get, so he can build you in a certain way and grow you in a certain way. And you probably thought that was something you were supposed to be separated forever, and then next time, and the Most High might visit you and tell you to go back. Don't mean to go back permanently or nothing like that, but it may be some more family members or somebody else you need to bring that word to. It happens, y'all. It happens. That's a pattern that you've seen throughout the scripture. So I just wanted to highlight that. Let's see. Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel. For those who sought the young child's life are dead. That's how you know it wasn't like they were gone for just years and years and years, because he's still a young child. Yahusha's still a young child during this time. So it wasn't like they had to hide out in Israel in Mitzrayim for like 40 years or something, like Moshe had to do, hide out in the wilderness for 40 years when he first fled Egypt when he was younger. But no, it wasn't that long because Yahusha was still a young child at this time. So I'm telling you, like he just had to flee, and Herod did that edict to get all them people killed, and the Most High probably judged him not too long after that for doing that. And then verse 21, so then he arose, took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Yasharal. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. I said, man, look at that. That's it right there. And being warned by Olua in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. Joseph was a Thub Ab, y'all. He stayed in tune with Yahuwah, and he led his family. He led his family according to the will of the Most High, and that's a Thub Ab. That's a Thub head of house who leads and guides his family based on the leading of Yahuwah, y'all. Based on the leading of the Most High. Verse 23. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. So he grew up. He was born in Bethlehem, the house of war. But then it's like he was raised up in childhood in Nazareth, which, that was like, man, one of those places like, that was nothing. That was like, who comes out of there? Don't nobody come out of there. That's like, nothing. Middle of nowhere. Very small area. But through the leading of his Ab, that's where he dwelt and where he ended up growing up, in Nazareth. What
That's
you
on
got on
that.
that? Yes, sir.
Man. Yeah, but what he said there was huge. I didn't even really see this as strongly, but looking at 19 through 23, because listen, Joseph had to be, he said, in tune with Yahuwah. And let me tell you something. As men, we got to be all the way in tune with Yahuwah step by step. Because let me tell you what I would have done. Give me about 2 years ago. Verse 20 says, arise, take the young child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. I would have went and just kept walking. I would have just kept walking and walking until I got to Israel. I'm in the middle of the square. But nah, look at what happens. So he says, go ahead, head to Israel. Then verse 21, he did that. He came to the land of Israel. But then when he heard, so he got word that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod. He got nervous, y'all. It says he was afraid to go there. And then he was warned in a dream. So when I look at that, I see these steps where he stayed in contact with Yahuwah. It says, man, Yahuwah, he went there. He's like, man, Yahuwah, this has happened. Look, Archelaus out here now instead of Herod. Man, Archelaus, that sounds like just a super Greek name. That's a crazy name, boy. But he's like, man, this father out here. So Most High, what you want me to do about this? This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. And then Alua came and answered him in the dream. Y'all, we had to be like that with the Most High. With me, I'm somebody, I used to have my mind set on a thing, and then that's the thing that I'm doing, and I ain't gonna turn left or right, but I'm gonna do that thing. But sometimes Yahuwah might want you to change up a little bit, or he wants you to ask for the next step, go one step at a time. You know what I'm saying? And what this means is like Nashim or wives. Y'all gotta be ready to hear that. Children, Yeladine, but no, but y'all gotta be ready to hear that. Because there'll be times when Yah might receive a thing and we'll be walking in that thing, and then Yahuwah might want to shift course. He might be like, all right, now you did this, now go this way. If Mary was like, no, 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 the Most High said we gotta go to Israel. That's where we gonna go, Joseph. That's where we gonna be. Archelaus would have came for their heads, y'all. Because he was like, oh man, you that one. Oh, you that little boy that left. But my daddy was looking for you, huh? Hey, y'all, come on over here. Let me talk to y'all real quick. So you have to be able to adjust with the will of the Most High. So the will of the Most High, y'all, we don't know it in full. We see it in part. That's why Paul says we're like a man that looks into a mirror, and it's like he says we dimly see it or something to that extent. We only know in part, so we always have to be in tune with the Most High. Man, I thought that was huge what you brought out with that. Just really trusting in Yahuwah and going step by step by step, and acknowledging how you feel and what you're thinking, and then asking the Most High, all right, where do I go from here? And not being stuck
Con,
on when Yahuwah said go to Canaan. I know there's a famine in Canaan, but look, honey, we're just not eating. I know that you and the servants are hungry, but Yahuwah said go to Canaan, so we're staying in Canaan. Nah, Abraham's like, all right, well, and don't say this, but I bet he communed with Yahuwah. He was like, yeah, go ahead and go to Egypt now. So it's about really going step by step with Yahuwah. That was a major point that you said. I just had to touch on that.
man, that's real. Praise Yahuwah. That is real. Um, let's see here. Ivan Yah Hakanan Little said 40 days, 40 years. Fast forward 440 years. 40 days, 40 years. Fast forward 440 years. I don't get what he mean on that one either. If you can elaborate, that'll be through. Uriel Yahoo said, when is the Midrash? Has the day changed? Yeah, Uriel Yahoo told our so yeah, I'm gonna have to send out how we doing it now. We're doing it a little different. But we're doing the Midrash right now on Yom Shlishi, which is the English word for Tuesday. Every what is it? No. I'm gonna have to follow up with you. I think it's the second and third. No, I think you're right, huh? Every first and fourth Yom Shlishi, but it's on Yom Shlishi. Around nighttime, around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. But we'll try to. I'm gonna send that out just so y'all know we did change the day though. But we still in there. We still doing it though. So all praise to the Most High. I mean, Hakanan Little says, so will we have to go back to get the 10 brides, 5 wise, 5 foolish, for Yahusha? Just thinking out loud. You get it? Go ahead.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying with that. I don't know the answer, but what he's doing is he's saying, how he had to go get his bride and bring his bride out. Is that going to be the same thing when we're looking at that parable? I think that parable, you might be onto something with that. I really got to think about that one, Aki. That's a very, very interesting pattern that you called out there. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I do understand what you're asking.
Yeah, that's through. I get it now after you explained it. Yeah. It says, so will we have to go back to get the 10 brides, 5 wise and 5 foolish for Yahusha? Yeah, that makes sense to me because that also lines up with like the Northern Kingdom and stuff like that. The 10 tribes are generally, kind of the loosely 10 tribes of the Northern Kingdom. And how Yehuda is the gathering of the people shall be and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very interesting, very, very interesting. But I got you. The previous comment about being in the wilderness and the different analogies. That's understandable. Cody Cole 80, Shalom and Barakot to you. Shalom and blessings. All right, y'all. So what we're going to do, we're going to go cover chapter 3 and we'll end it there. Let's see. Chapter 3, let's get it. In those days, Yehochanan the Immerser, or John the Baptist, Yehochanan the Immerser came preaching in the wilderness of Judea and saying, repent, teshuvah, or shub, repent, for the kingdom of the Shamaim is at hand. For this is he who was spoken of by the prophet Yeshayahu. Here we go. Saying, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of Yahuwah, make his path straight. Listen, that one prophecy, this was about Yehochanan the Immerser. Let's go there. Yeshayahu 43, this is just through to see how, listen, you can't come in here using a whole lot of intellect to try to interpret prophecy. You gotta be praying on these things and seek the Most High. Comfort, yes, comfort. This is Yeshayahu chapter 40. Comfort, yes, comfort my people. Says Yeruah. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned. For she has received from Yahuwah's hand double for all her sins. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of Yahuwah. Make straight in the desert, that's the wilderness, a highway for our Alua. This was about Yahuwah the Mercer. Yeah. Yeah. Verse 4, now Yahukanan himself was clothed in camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. That's another thing, you know. We got to touch on these things while they're in our face, you know what I'm saying? Because, some people, they have an issue with honey. But, man, listen, honey's stew. Honey's stew. It's the honey from a bee. It's the honey from a bee, okay? It's not date honey. It's not date honey, Miss Parker. We're not gonna go deep into that, but the Hebrew for honey is associated with the Hebrew word for bee. The Hebrew word for honey is not associated with the Hebrew word for dates. The Hebrew word for bees is Deborah. The Hebrew word for honey is Debash. Because it's surrounded around a Debar word. Right. So the scriptures talk about how it says things like his word, is sweet, like honey coming down from a honeycomb. You see scriptures like that that say things like that. Because Deborah, bees, and honey is associated in certain ways with the word. The honey is associated with the deeper things of the word. The milk is representative of the rudimentary aspects or the more basic aspects of the Torah, of the word. The bees, the honey represents the more deeper things of the word. So eating wild honey is not eating an unclean animal. We got to understand the nuances of Torah. Bees are unclean to eat, but when you are eating honey, you are not eating bees. Honey comes from bees, and bees are unclean. And so there's this thing where people have an issue with honey because it comes from an unclean animal. But the Torah don't address using products that come from an unclean animal. This is what I'm not saying. I'm not advocating for you to do camel milk, things like that, and all that. But when we look at the intricacies and the nuances in Torah, know that what the Torah speaks against and says not to do is to eat unclean animals. So this is why you saw our ancestors eating honey out throughout the scriptures. That's why. This is why you saw them. That's why even the promised land was called the land flowing with milk and with honey. That's just a side note, y'all. I know, we just bringing some things out. Also, I gotta say this too. John was clothed in camel's hair. Camel is an unclean animal. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with having a kosher brush, Kodesh brushes where they use lamb's hair, I think, or something that's not unclean. Hey, there's nothing wrong with it as long as it works. But you're not transgressing the covenant by using a brush that may have hair from an unclean animal that they used on it, or fibers or something. These are just things that come up, so it's just worth just addressing, while we there. Because if that was the issue, then Yachanan wouldn't be wearing, he was one of the greatest prophets in the scripture, wouldn't be wearing camel's hair for his clothing, an unclean animal. He would be wearing like wool or something, or linen. That was the more common, our ancestors commonly, it was wool and linen. You couldn't argue against that. That's clean animal. But there are instances like with Yachanan, he wearing camel's hair. He probably was looking interesting, man. He probably was an interesting act. Man, he had a camel fur garment on, man. And he had a leather belt around his waist, which probably, that leather belt, because when the scriptures specify things like that, there's something to it. That leather belt was probably some sort of like a girdle, like um, probably some. It was probably some sort of special garment that he wore. And then his food was locusts and wild honey. So he was very on the edge with keeping Torah. That's what it's showing. Very on edge. So eating locusts is very edgy, but it's still not against Torah. That's literally the only clean thing from the insects that you could eat. All insects are unclean to eat except like the locust, grasshopper type of ant, those things. So he was very edgy when it comes to the scriptures. But he was always stay aligned with the scriptures. So he probably dealt with a lot of, because man, listen, there was a different during the time of the Pharisees. The Pharisees, they didn't deal with the edginess of the Torah. If you were too close, they own you. They own you. So Yachanan will probably, man, he probably was dealing with all kind of scrutiny from the Pharisees. What you doing wearing that camel's hair? That's unclean. How you a prophet of Yasharal wearing an unclean animal across your body? And condemning him, but he wasn't transgressing no Torah, nothing in the Torah. Nothing in the Torah. Why are you eating that honey? Yeah, no. It's supposed to be date honey. It's supposed to be the syrup from date syrup. Why are you eating locusts? That's unclean. It's like Yachanan, the way he moved and lived his life, it's like he did the edgy stuff that you're allowed to do in the scriptures. And I can imagine how much it pushed buttons to the Pharisees in them, because Yahushua HaMashiach was similar. He did a lot of edgy stuff, man. But it was all he did not go against Torah. That's a misconception. Yahushua did not transgress the covenant. He transgressed the oral traditions of the Pharisaic order. He transgressed those things, and I submit he was doing it on purpose to let them know that stuff ain't the same. That's not sin. You know what I'm saying? You can't call that sin because we went against your traditions. You have anything on that?
Yeah, listen, man. Y'all know John Daddy was a whole priest out here, right? John Daddy was Zechariah. He was to the priestly line. And he was serving. Like, yeah, listen, John. That's like saying, I was like, well, we maybe have made this argument. It might not be the best example. I'm gonna use it anyway. That's like saying Bronny James can't dribble basketball. His daddy out here, LeBron James, but Bronny, boy, can't even dribble. Listen, Yehukanan was not out here transgressing Torah, y'all. This is what happened. So the Pharisees, they were very, very, very um, uh, dogged when it came to doctrine. They set up all these the Greek calls it paradosis, all these like these borders around the Torah, and they force people to keep them. But I submit that I never thought about it like that. Yehukanah was that dude. He was that dude. He was that uncle that showed up at the party. And you know what he gonna say is true, but he just be like all in your face with it. Big headed boy. Why you worrying about what I'm wearing? You need to be worrying about who your wife is. Like that was Yehukanah, man. Like I imagine him in my mind when I read this. Yehukanah just show up and he be tearing into people when they question him about something. And you can gotta see it with how he about to talk through the rest of Matthew chapter 3. But he was that dude. It's like, man, look, I ain't about to say nothing to him. You won't ask him? I ain't about to ask. Because, man, Yehukanah was something else. And I could see why he would be edgy, because that's the opposite of the Pharisees. Matter of fact, Yahusha would even go so far, so far to say they thought he was a drunk. No, they said he had a demon, and they thought Yahusha was a drunk. He's like, man, Yehukanah came, y'all said he got a demon. But then I came drinking and something. You said that I'm a drunk. So it's like, man, I can't win with y'all. So I think that's why Yehukanah was like that. But it also makes sense because when you look at Eliyahu, now remember, we'll get to Matthew 11. It says that Yehukanah and Eliyahu, Yehukanah was Eliyahu. Eliyahu has some questionable things too now. So he did a lot of things that was like, man, he just
Con,
he up there telling the prophets this, that, and the other. You prophets of Baal and going against Jezebel and Ahab and all these different things. So nah, man, I think you onto something, man. That your Huguenots, that dude was gonna push the tour, and I dare you to say something.
con, con. That's real. That is real. And so, keeping it going now, Yakanan himself was clothed, or Yehukanan himself was clothed in camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. Then Jerusalem, all Judea, and all the region around the Jordan went out to him and were immersed by him in the Jordan, confessing their sins. Man, so he had a strong ministry where he had the whole city coming out, getting immersed and trying to confess. He was making the path straight. He was causing people to repent, to confess, and to return. That's a big deal. He's causing people to return to the covenant. You're talking about confessing for your sins and things like that. That means, remember, sin is a transgression of Torah. Sin is a transgression of the law. That is the the textbook definition of sin biblically. So what that means is that a lot of Yasharal were going astray. They stopped keeping Torah. And Yehukanan, the immerser, came in and caused people to confess and return to the covenant. Many of us been through the same thing. Similar thing, I should say. Verse 7, but when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to his immersion, he said to them, brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? So that's what Bakir Sagan was talking about, man. Look, he was that ark. Now he didn't hold no punches. He didn't pull no
What was
punches.
up, man?
Therefore bear fruits worthy of repentance, and do not think to say to yourselves, we have Abraham as our father. For I say to you that Eluah is able to raise up children to Abraham from these stones. Man. And even now the axe is laid to the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree which does not bear thub fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So he going in. He basically saying, yeah, y'all. So what does it mean to bear thub fruit? It's about your teachings, your words, your actions. He's calling them out. See, this is the thing about the Pharisees, what a lot of people don't understand when we read the Brit Hadashah, is that most of Yasharah looked at the Pharisees as those people. The Pharisees, especially the Sadducees too, but especially the Pharisees, were looked at as super righteous people. They were looked at as the standard of what you need to be to serve Yahuwah. Their wickedness was behind closed doors. They were extremely wicked, but they were extremely well at hiding it. They were in bed with Rome. They were sellouts, y'all. But the masses did not know it because they were sellouts in secret. Yahusha was calling out the Pharisees for their hypocrisy so much because even though they were sellouts, well, at least one of the reasons, it's for many reasons. I'm just giving one reason, one big reason in my mind. They were the biggest sellouts in Yahshua, I would submit. But then they would go hard on people like the tax collectors, who they were sellouts too. The tax collectors were Israelites who were in bed with Rome too. But they were in the open. Y'all ever seen like the people I'm gonna say this. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You got these people who cry out, oh, this dude's a snitch. This dude is snitch, man. He ratted out all his partners. This dude is snitch. He a snitch. He a snitch. And it's this, you have these people, y'all. They swear they the heart of the streets, and they always calling out all these people that snitch and that sold out, they people to the authorities. They sold out their people to Babylon, for a lower sentence. And it's like their whole existence is just to call out all the snitches until you find out, man, they've been They a whole informant out here. They one of the biggest snitches ever. They was just doing it behind closed doors. Nobody knew it though. This is how the Pharisees were. They were, everything they did, it was under the submission to Rome, but they acted like they was for the people. They acted like they was for the people, but the whole time they were sold out to Rome and were submitted and were keeping the status quo. They were literally helping Rome to keep the status quo in Yasharal. Yeah, that fly means something. I think that I think the Most High wanted to do to try to wrap it up. But so we're gonna wrap it up here shortly. But I'm gonna just highlight that is that was a major issue with the Pharisees. The tax collectors would sell out in the open, but the Pharisees were sellouts in secret. And then the Pharisees, because they knew that nobody know they were sellouts, they would go hard on the tax collectors. I mean hard. That's why Yahushua was doing this stuff on purpose. He'll go chill with the tax collector. And then when the Pharisee try to call him out, he'll go, Yahushua will go hard on the Pharisees. Because even though most people didn't know the Pharisees would sell out, Yahushua knew. He had their number. And I submit Yahukanan the Immerser had their number. A brood of vipers. That man, vipers are snakes, and we know the symbolism of snakes, deceptive people, not truthful, and so on and so forth. All right, well, let's keep it moving. All right. You see the fly stopped coming when I understood what it meant. And even now the axe is laid to the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree which does not bear fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. I indeed immerse you with water unto repentance, but he who is coming after me is mightier than I, whose sandals I am not worthy to carry. He will baptize you with the Ruach HaKodesh and fire. This is so significant, Mishpach. I can't even, man. You know what this is showing? This is showing how submitted Yahukanan the Immerser was. Even though he was the top dog in Yasharal during this time, even though he was the top dog in Yasharal, he was the one who everybody was going to. He was the one who everybody was going to. Everybody was getting immersed by. He was like the head, in a sense. It said that all of Jerusalem and all of the region came to him to be immersed and repentant. He was still submitted to Yahusha though. He didn't get above himself and think he was above the order. You see what I'm saying? So much so that he made sure to point everybody to Yahusha. He pointed everybody to his head. He wasn't trying to gain notoriety for himself. He was humble and submitted. All those things he was doing, that whole ministry, it was not to pump himself up. So much so that he made sure to tell the people, man, look, listen, there's somebody mightier than me who's coming, and I'm not even worthy to carry his sandals. Like, listen, I'm nothing. Now listen, I'm just really pointing you to him. He didn't feel like, oh man, Yahusha's coming. I need to try to compete with him, man. I need to, man, then that's going to be the end of my ministry. Y'all know when Yahusha came, he turned all his people over to Yahusha. Well, we know the story, he ended up getting killed, but the point is, his mindset was to turn everybody over to Yahusha. He didn't have no mind to like try to compete with Yahusha, nothing like that. Now you look at that versus King Herod. Oh, Yahusha's coming? Oh man, let me try to figure out how to kill him. Because that's competition. That's the difference between the Kodesh and the heathen. All right, so let's keep going. I indeed immerse you with water unto repentance, But he who is coming after me is mightier than I, whose sandals I'm not worthy to carry. He will immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh and fire. His winnowing fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly clean out his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the barn. But he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. So that goes into the, he will separate. He will cause people to it's the separating the wheat from the tares, the winnowing, scatter those who is not his and gather those who belong to him. That's an important prophecy here. It says, then Yahusha came from Galilee to Yahachanan at the Jordan to be immersed by him. Then Yahusha came from Galilee to Yahachanan at the Jordan to be immersed by him. And Yahachanan tried to prevent him, saying, I need to be immersed by you, and are you coming to me? But Yahusha answered and said to him, this is important, permit it to be so now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he allowed him. So basically, Yahusha said, this needs to happen to fulfill our righteousness. Why was that significant? Because Yasharal was immersed through the waters. Verse 16, when he had been immersed, Yahusha came up immediately from the water, and behold, the Shamayim were open to him. And he saw the Ruach of Eluah descending like a dove and alighting upon him. And suddenly a voice came from the Shamayim saying, this is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. Hallelujah. So yeah, that's we're gonna stop on chapter 3. But Bakir Sargon, did you have anything else on this?
Yeah, let me just touch on what you said real quick. Let me just touch on what you said about Yehukanan and not competing with Yahusha. Yehukanan was the big cousin, right? He was the older one.
Ooh.
Yahusha was born after Yehukanan.
Uh-huh.
Because y'all remember, Elizabeth was pregnant. She getting near her time, and then her cousin Mary or her sister Mary walk in, and Yehukanan began doing all these flips in the belly. Y'all, Yehukanan was completely submitted to the one that came after him. I think that's even what he means. I don't think we read it in this part, but he says, but the one that comes after me, I'm not even worthy to lace his shoestrings. I'm not even worthy of what he's doing. So it's this mindset of Yahuwah first, me second. Because when it's Yahuwah first, me second, you don't really just worry about who the person that Yahuwah has anointed. That's really what it boils down to. It boils down to who was anointed to do it. But see, in our way of thinking that we've learned in this Western culture is who's better at doing it. That's how we process it. Who's better at immersing? Who's better at correcting people? Who's better at who's a better teacher? Who's a better, you know what I'm saying? We don't do that. That's not how they looked at it. They saw it as who is the one that's anointed to do this? Doesn't Mashiach mean anointed? Wasn't David Mashiach? Wasn't David anointed? Same thing with Saul. He was anointed. Asatana, he was even anointed, honestly. So it's really about the anointing. We got to learn to recognize the anointing instead of the like the function or even like the gift in a way. Who's more inclined or the wisdom? We got to recognize the anointing on people. If we can start recognizing who's anointed to do a thing, it'll kill that competition thing. Oh, you anointed as oh man, Yahuwah called you my Isha? Oh, bet. All right, say this. Oh, you my more, you my Musha? You're my Ab, because we've been talking about a hundredfold family, right? You're my Ab. Oh man, say less. All right. That's all I need to know. You anointed to be my Ab. You anointed to be my Ab. Oh, you anointed as my head? Okay, all right. It ain't about whether I can do this thing better or hey, look, I might be able to write better or speak better or draw better. I don't know, whatever you want to categorize it as. It ceases to be about that when you recognize who Yahuwah has anointed to do a thing. That's why David was like that with Saul. That's why David was like, hey, no, he anointed. I ain't touching him. I know I'm anointed to be king, but he king. He's still king. Now that's all right there. What we ain't about to do is come out this cave and start no war. That's all we're not about to do that. Because it's about who's anointed to do the thing. Because when you're anointed to do it, you're not even in competition with nobody. Why? Because you're not in the same race. You're not running the same race. It's you and Yahuwah. That's it. It don't matter who's anointed. It don't matter who's older. It matters who's anointed. And as you called that out, to see Yahukanan really submit to Yahusha like that. Because remember, we read it from the standpoint of, oh, that's Yahusha, because we saw his beginning and his end.
Yeah.
Yahukanan is like, hey, man, we grew up together, right? He could have been like, hey, man, like, when we was walking to Jerusalem for the Day of Atonement, man, I saw you sneak that candy. You know what I'm saying? Or man, you know what? Look, man, I remember I bodied you. You remember when we was arguing over that last piece of bread and our salam juice? So don't you come out here while I'm anointed, immersing people, telling me that you won't do X, Y, and Z. He said that, but he's not gonna do that because he recognized who was anointed versus who was stewed at something. We got to see it that way. That was major. The point you called out.
Yeah, I mean, that's big cousin. I mean, man, you can literally just be like, you know what? I think I can do this. I can do this salvation thing. I could do this. My daddy a priest. Yeah, like, man, look. But man, when you're talking about someone who's truly of Yahuwah, his humbleness is gonna reflect that, and his submission to the order. He was truly submitted, truly, because most people who had that much popularity as Yehukanan or Mercer wouldn't have had the ability, the humbleness to be able to turn that over to somebody else and to tell them, hey, no, there's somebody bigger, more important than me coming. Y'all gotta, be ready for that. I'm just preparing to wait for that. So, man, told out to Yahuwah Yahusha. All right, y'all. Let's see what we got here on the comments. Let's see. Elisheba, Exodus 6:23. Aharon took to himself Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab. Oh, Todah. Elisheba was the name of the sister of Nashon, his wife, and she bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. That was Bakir Ezra Hadassah, who deemed to you. Let's see here. Yirmiyahu and Shemayahu put Psalms 2:12. Kiss his son, or he. Man, this thing gets in the way and you can't see it. Kiss his son, okay, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. Hallelujah. In regard to MATITYAHU chapter 2:11. Okay. Ahmed said he gave Joseph the dream, but he gave his father the interpretation. Yeah, you talk about in Torah? Yeah, that's a through point. That was Mushala Ahmed, Kafel Hudim. Shear said, one man through many generations. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. Okay, Mushala Ahmed confirmed that it's near Bethlehem. It's probably before I looked it up to make sure. But all praise to the Most High. Let's see what we got over here. Let's see. Honeydew melons are prevalent in the land, I submit. Okay. You saying that has something to do with honey? All right, Raphael, 2nd Ezra or 4th Ezra 13:39 through 47. In the Sefer speaks of the 10 northern tribes being gathered after the southern tribes. Would that be 10 wives that we go back and get? Raphael, that's what I was thinking when Ivan Yochanan Little brought that out. That could be a thing maybe, because, again, unto Yehuda is the gathering of the people shall be. The people meaning his brethren. Which, you have Judah and then you have the northern kingdom. So it makes sense to me because I know Judah has, Benjamin as well, but, that generally kind of is under the umbrella of Yehuda, you can kind of say. So then that'll leave the 10 tribes, of the northern kingdom. I know that's loosely because, you have Levi and things like that, which is not really northern or southern, but I can see that. My point is, I can see that being associated. Ima Yana Muna says, especially John was a priest, so to speak, from the tribe of Levi. Exactly. So that's
Oh,
what Bakir Sargon was bringing out. So you in that card. You in that card. Cody Cole 80 said, Big Brother Mashiach ate a honeycomb in Luke, I think. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, I did see that earlier. Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge point. that actually that shuts it down right there. That, that's doors closed right there. I was thinking of some other scriptures like with Shimshon that took the honey from the bee, and he I think he ate it and then he gave some to his parent, but it came from a lion that was dead, the carcass of a lion. So because of that, now that's against Torah. If you read the scriptures, something that's touched by the carcass of a dead animal is supposed to be unclean,
and
not
Simpson was out
because it
there.
was honey. What it was showing though is that the honey though, the bash, comes from a bee though. It's not like there's nothing that shows like dates being the Hebrew word dabash, date syrup. Um, it's showing that the bee honey from beehives, bees, is the bash. And then it was another time with Saul, with King Saul and his sons, and he had took took some honey from the beehive and ate some of it. And Saul was fasting or something like that. He made it, and so he got mad at his son. I think it was his son who did that. He got mad at his son for that. It's all kind of there's no way you would have been able to take a stick and get date syrup. Date syrup is highly processed. It's a whole process to do that. No, that was bee honey, but man, this actually, this shuts it. You ain't got to go through none of that. This shuts it down right here. Luke 24:42 through 45. So they gave him a piece of broiled fish and some honeycomb, and he took it and ate it in their presence. That's food. Uriel Yahoo said he probably did it to irk them. Yeah, talking about Yehukin out there in Mercy. Yeah. Yeah, that's provoke. Yeah. Yeah, man. Lily G of the Valley. Shalom Barakot to you. Shalom, shalom. Ema Yanam Yunah 2142 said John, priest Levi, Yahusha, king of Judah, priest John immersed, Yahusha our king. John knew his purpose. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. That's through. Yeah, that whole concept of the king and the priest. Yeah, that's through. That's through. But all right, y'all. Y'all have a through. We're about to, at least in Texas, we about to go into a rev, going into sundown. So y'all have a through rest of your prep day. And y'all have a through Shabbat. Much Ahavah. And most High willing, we'll do this again, I believe, next week. Lakam La Shalom.
The time.